It is 3 in the morning. The world outside is draped in a profound silence, a stillness that only exists in the deep hours before the dawn. But in this room, on this bed, a storm is raging. It is a silent storm, a tempest confined to the landscape of a single mind. There are no thunderclaps, only the relentless echo of conversations replayed, of words left unsaid, of tasks looming on the horizon. There is the sharp sting of a past mistake, a shadow of regret that chills more than the night air, followed by a wave of anxiety for what the coming day might demand. This should be a place of refuge, a sanctuary for rest and renewal. Instead, for so many of us, it has become a battleground. We lie here, prisoners of a mind that will not quiet itself, yearning for the sweet oblivion of sleep, only to find ourselves more awake, more entangled in the very thoughts we seek to escape. This experience, this quiet desperation in the lonely hours, is more than just insomnia. It is a symptom of a deeper condition, a spiritual restlessness that defines much of our modern existence. Our minds, conditioned by a world of constant stimulation, of endless doing and ceaseless striving, have forgotten the simple art of being. We carry the momentum of our day, with all its attachments, its ambitions, and its resentments, directly into the sacred space of our night. The darkness does not bring peace. It simply removes the external distractions, leaving us alone and vulnerable with the chaos we have cultivated within. We see sleep not as a gentle surrender, but as another task to be accomplished, another problem to be solved. And in this struggle, we push it further and further away, creating a cycle of frustration and exhaustion. But what if this struggle was based on a misunderstanding? What if we could learn to see these quiet, dark hours not as a void to be feared, but as a profound opportunity to be embraced? What if the night, in its vast stillness, was not an enemy, but a teacher? There is an ancient stream of wisdom flowing from the heart of Buddhist philosophy that offers not a quick fix or a sleeping pill, but a revolutionary path. It suggests that the state of sleep is not a mere biological function, not a simple off switch for the brain, but a deep and mysterious realm of consciousness that can be navigated with intention and care. This path teaches us that we can transform our relationship with the night, turning it from a source of anxiety into a sanctuary for practice, a laboratory for understanding the very nature of our mind, and a gateway to a freedom so deep it touches even our dreams. This is not a journey into sleep, but a journey through it, towards a peace that endures long after the sun has risen. In the profound stillness of the night, when the clamor of the world has finally ceased, we are left alone with the sound of our own mind. And for so many, that sound is not one of peace, but of relentless, churning noise. We call it by many names: anxiety, stress, worry, insomnia, but it is fundamentally a state of profound disquiet. The common, almost instinctual reaction to this state is to fight it. We tell the mind to be quiet. We try to wrestle our thoughts into submission. We force our attention onto the idea of sleep, treating the mind as an unruly child that must be disciplined. But this struggle, this internal war, only adds fuel to the fire. It creates more tension, more agitation, and pushes peace even further away. To truly begin this journey towards inner freedom, we must first change our approach. We must put down our weapons. Instead of fighting the storm, we must first seek to understand its nature. We must become students of our own restlessness, observing its patterns, its textures, and its causes with a gentle, non-judgmental curiosity. The first step on this path is not an action, but a deep seeing. It is an investigation into the anatomy of our own unease. For only when we have diagnosed the ailment can we begin to apply the cure. The foundational insight of this path begins with a radical shift in perspective. The thoughts, feelings, and sensations that arise within you are not, in their essence, you. We are so accustomed to identifying with our internal states that we fuse with them completely. The thought arises, "I am anxious," and in that moment, our entire universe shrinks to the size of that anxiety. The thought appears, "I am a failure," and we become the embodiment of that judgment. This is the primary source of our suffering, this mistaken identity. Buddhist wisdom invites us to see these mental events for what they are: transient, impersonal phenomena, like clouds passing through the vast, open sky of our awareness. You are not the storm cloud. You are the sky that holds the storm cloud. The sky does not fight the cloud, nor does it cling to the cloud. It simply allows it to be, to gather, to rain, and to eventually dissipate, all without changing the fundamental nature of the sky itself. Your awareness, your consciousness, is that sky. The anxiety, the planning, the regret, these are merely clouds. By learning to rest in this awareness, by observing the clouds without becoming them, we begin to reclaim our inner space and our innate freedom. This is not a denial of the pain. The pain is very real. It is a refusal to grant that pain a solid, permanent identity as me or mine. The restlessness is present, but it is not who you are. When we observe this mental weather with care, we begin to notice that the clouds are not random. They follow certain patterns. They arise from specific conditions. Ancient Buddhist psychologists, through millennia of introspective observation, identified 5 primary patterns that obscure the natural clarity of the mind. They are known as the 5 hindrances. Think of them not as sins or personal failings, but as universal energies, like weeds that naturally grow in the garden of any human mind if left untended. They are called hindrances because they block the light of our own wisdom. They prevent us from seeing things as they truly are. They are the primary agents of our midnight restlessness. These 5 are sensory desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness and worry, and finally, skeptical doubt. In the quiet of the night, when our external distractions are gone, these 5 guests often come to visit, uninvited, and take over the house of our mind, turning it from a place of rest into a place of turmoil. Let us look at these visitors one by one to learn their faces, so we no longer mistake them for the master of the house. The first is sensory desire. This is the mind's relentless pull towards pleasure, the constant seeking of something other than what is presently here. At 3 in the morning, it may not be a grand passion, but a subtle, nagging urge. It is the mind replaying a pleasant memory from the past, wanting to taste that sweetness again. It is the mind planning a future vacation, a future purchase, a future success, seeking a hit of anticipatory pleasure. It is the almost irresistible urge to reach for the phone, to open the glowing portal to a world of endless distraction, of novel images and quick validation. Sensory desire is the voice that whispers, "This moment, this quiet, this darkness is not enough. I want something else. I need something more." It is a leaning forward energy, a constant chase that makes it impossible for the mind to settle and be at rest where it is. The second hindrance is its opposite energy, ill will or aversion. If desire is the pulling towards, aversion is the pushing away. This is the mind engaged in a fight. It is the replaying of an argument, feeling the hot flush of anger all over again. It is the simmering resentment towards a coworker, a family member, or a politician. It can be a subtle irritation at the sound of a distant siren or the ticking of a clock. Crucially, at night, this aversion is often directed at the state of sleeplessness itself. A thought arises, "I can't believe I'm still awake. I'm going to be useless tomorrow." And with it comes a wave of hatred and frustration towards our own body, our own mind. This pushing away creates immense tension, a tightening in the chest, a clenching in the jaw. It is a declaration of war on reality, a refusal to accept what is. And as in any war, the first casualty is always peace. The third hindrance is more subtle and often misunderstood. It is sloth and torpor. This is not the pleasant drowsiness that leads to sleep. It is a heavy, dull, and foggy state of mind. It is a mental lethargy, a feeling of being weighed down, as if you were trying to walk through thick mud. The mind lacks energy, not for sleep, but for clarity. It feels too tired to be mindful, too sluggish to even focus on the breath. This is the mind giving up, sinking into a hazy state of passive suffering. It is a kind of internal shutdown, a withdrawal from experience that is neither restful sleep nor clear wakefulness. It is a limbo state, a murky swamp where motivation dies and the will to practice evaporates. This heaviness is a powerful obstacle because it convinces us that we are simply too tired to do anything but suffer. The fourth hindrance is perhaps the most familiar to the modern person. It is restlessness and worry. This is the very engine of the monkey mind. Restlessness is the frantic, jittery energy of the mind that cannot land anywhere. It jumps from thought to thought, from sensation to sensation, like a frightened bird in a cage. It is the what if disease. What if I miss my alarm? What if that presentation goes badly? What if this strange pain is something serious? It is a constant projection into 1,000 possible futures, each one more catastrophic than the last. Its partner is worry or regret. This is the mind picking at the past, like a tongue probing a sore tooth. It is chewing on old mistakes, cringing at embarrassing moments, dwelling on things we cannot change. This pair, restlessness and worry, creates a vortex of mental activity. It is a spinning wheel that generates its own momentum, making the mind feel like a chaotic, out-of-control machine. Finally, the fifth and perhaps most paralyzing hindrance is skeptical doubt. When all the other hindrances have worn us down, doubt comes in to deliver the final blow. It is the whisper that says, "This is useless. This breathing, this mindfulness, it doesn't work. Not for me. My mind is different. It's too broken." It is doubt in our own capacity for peace. It is doubt in the path, in the teachings, in the possibility that things could ever be different. Doubt cuts the root of all effort. It convinces us not to even try. It makes us abandon the very tools that could lead us to freedom, ensuring that we remain trapped in the cycle of our own suffering. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy of despair. These 5 patterns are as old as human consciousness itself, but our modern world has become a perfect greenhouse for them. Our smartphones are engines of infinite sensory desire, always offering something new to want. Our social media feeds are landscapes of comparison that can easily breed ill will and resentment. Our culture of relentless productivity and hyper-efficiency fuels a constant, low-grade restlessness and worry, a feeling that we are never doing enough. The sheer volume of information and conflicting opinions we are exposed to every day is a fertile ground for skeptical doubt. We spend our waking hours actively training our minds in these hindrances, so it is no wonder that they show up with such force when we finally lie down in the dark. There is a simple story that illustrates our predicament. A man stands by a beautiful, clear lake. He sees a reflection of the full moon on its surface, but a breeze comes and ripples the water, shattering the image. Frustrated, the man wants to see the moon whole again, so he plunges his hands into the lake, trying to flatten the ripples, trying to force the water into stillness. But of course, the more he thrashes and struggles, the more agitated the water becomes, the more distorted the reflection of the moon. Exhausted and defeated, he finally gives up. He sits on the bank, withdraws his hands, and simply does nothing. And in that stillness, the water, by its own nature, slowly settles, the ripples subside, and soon the surface is like a perfect mirror, reflecting the calm, unbroken image of the moon once more. Our mind is this lake. The hindrances are the ripples. Our desperate attempts to fight our thoughts, to force our mind into submission, are the thrashing hands that only make things worse. The wisdom of this path lies in the counterintuitive act of withdrawing our hands. It lies in learning to sit by the shore of our own mind and simply watch, allowing the waters to settle on their own. This process begins with what we have done here, identifying the patterns. By giving a name to sensory desire, to ill will, to restlessness and worry, we begin to see them not as an inseparable part of ourselves, but as impersonal weather patterns passing through. We shift from being a victim of the storm to being a meteorologist of the mind. This seeing, this clear recognition, is the first and most crucial step. It drains the hindrances of their power over us, for they thrive in the darkness of our unawareness. Now that we have seen these patterns, we can begin to ask a deeper question. If the mind is not these restless thoughts, then what is it? This leads us away from fighting the ripples and towards understanding the nature of the water itself. Having identified the uninvited guests that trouble our peace, the 5 hindrances, we might feel that we now have a clearer target for our battle. It can be tempting to see the mind as a faulty machine, a broken computer that keeps running noisy, unwanted programs. We feel a desperate urge to find the off switch, to reboot the system, to fix what seems to be fundamentally broken. This very metaphor of the mind as a machine is a primary source of our struggle. A machine is a solid, definite thing. When it malfunctions, it remains a malfunctioning machine until an external force repairs it. We feel stuck with this broken hardware, this flawed programming, and this perception breeds a sense of hopelessness. What if, however, this entire metaphor is wrong? What if the mind is not a solid, static machine at all, but something infinitely more fluid, more dynamic, and more mysterious? The wisdom of the Buddhist path invites us to completely discard the mechanical model and embrace a far more powerful and liberating image: the mind as a flowing river. Imagine standing on the bank of a great river. The water is in constant motion, a ceaseless flow of energy. You cannot point to one part of it and say, "This is the river," because the river is the entire, unfolding process. It is a continuous stream of moments, each drop of water giving way to the next, creating a current that is always new, always fresh. The ancient Greek philosopher Heraclitus said that you cannot step into the same river twice. By the time you lift your foot and place it down again, the water you first touched is already far downstream, replaced by new water. This is precisely the nature of our mind. In Buddhist thought, the mind is called Citta Santana, which translates to mind stream. It is not a noun, but a verb. It is not a thing, but an event. It is a continuous, moment-to-moment arising and passing of consciousness, of thoughts, of feelings, of sensation. The mind you had 1 second ago is gone, replaced by the mind of this very moment, which will in turn vanish to make way for the next. There is no solid, unchanging mind to be found, only the ceaseless, fluid process of minding. This perspective changes everything. If the mind is a flowing river, then our task is not to stop it, which is impossible and would only lead to immense frustration. Our task is to understand its nature and learn to navigate its currents. A turbulent, muddy flow is not a broken river. It is simply a river in a particular state, perhaps after a storm. A calm, clear flow is the same river in a different state. The river itself is not good or bad. It simply is. When we are lying awake, caught in a torrent of anxious thoughts, we are not broken. Our mind stream is simply flowing with a particular quality of energy. By seeing it this way, we depersonalize the struggle. It's not my anxiety that is the problem. It is an anxious energy, an anxious quality, moving through the river of consciousness. This realization is the beginning of true freedom, because it introduces a space between the observer and the observed. We move from being helplessly tossed about in the current to sitting on the riverbank, watching the water flow by. This leads us to a deeper, more profound question. If the mind is a flowing river of thoughts and feelings, then who is the I that is watching it? We have a powerful, intuitive sense of a permanent self, a little homunculus, a CEO in the headquarters of our head who is thinking our thoughts and feeling our emotions. We say, "I am thinking," or "I am angry." But this Buddhist perspective invites us to look for this thinker. When an angry thought arises, look for the I that is angry. Where is it? Is it in your chest? Is it in your head? The more you look for a solid, independent I, the more you realize it cannot be found. What you find instead is just the experience itself. The heat in the body, the tension in the muscles, the story playing out in the mind. There is no angry person behind the anger. There is only the process of anger unfolding. This is the core teaching of anatta, or no self. It doesn't mean that you don't exist. It means that you do not exist as a separate, permanent, unchanging entity. You exist as a dynamic, interconnected process. just like the river. There is a famous story from the Buddhist texts that beautifully illustrates this point. A king named Milinda, a man of great intellect, sought out a Buddhist sage named Nagasena to challenge him on this very teaching of no self. Upon meeting the sage, the king asked for his name. Nagasena replied that he was known as Nagasena, but that Nagasena was merely a designation, a convenient name, and that no permanent person could be found. The king was baffled and amused. He gestured to the chariot he had arrived in and began his interrogation. "Venerable sir," he said, "if there is no person, then who wears these robes? Who eats? Who sleeps? Who is it that I am speaking to?" He then asked, "Did you walk here, or did you arrive in a chariot?" Nagasena confirmed he came by chariot. Then the king pressed, "Show me the chariot. Is the pole the chariot?" "No, your majesty," replied the sage. "Is the axle the chariot?" "No, your majesty." "Are the wheels, the frame, the ropes, the yoke, the godare, any of these the chariot?" In each case, Nagasena replied, "No, your majesty." The king was triumphant. "Then, sir, you are lying. There is no chariot." Nagasena remained calm. He turned the question back on the king. "Your majesty," he asked gently, "how did you arrive here? You say you came in a chariot. Is it the collection of all these parts together that is the chariot?" The king, seeing the logic, conceded that it was. The sage then concluded, "Just so, your majesty. In the same way, Nagasena is a convenient name, a designation given to the collection of the body, the feelings, the perceptions, the mental formations, and the consciousness. But when examined in reality, no permanent, independent self can be found. This story reveals that our self is much like the chariot. It is a useful label for a temporary assembly of constantly changing physical and mental components. We are a process, a verb, a constellation, not a solid, singular noun. This understanding, that the self is not a solid thing, and that the mind is a constantly flowing stream, directly reveals the two great liberating truths of this path. The first is anatta, no self, which we have just explored. The second is its inseparable partner, anicca, or impermanence. Because the mind is a river, it is by its very nature in a state of constant flux. No thought, no feeling, no mood is permanent. It arises, it exists for a time, and it passes away. When we are caught in the grip of a powerful wave of anxiety or despair in the middle of the night, it feels as if it will last forever. It feels solid, all-encompassing, and eternal. But the wisdom of impermanence is a lifeline. It reminds us, this, too, shall pass. This is not wishful thinking. It is the fundamental law of existence. The painful thought you are experiencing right now is like a single wave in the river. It has arisen, and it will, by its own nature, fall. Our suffering comes not from the wave itself, but from our desperate attempt to grab onto it, to analyze it, to fight it, or to identify with it. When we truly understand impermanence, we can learn to let the waves arise and pass without being drowned by them. This is not just abstract philosophy. It has a profoundly practical application, a way of transforming your direct experience, moment by moment, as you lie in bed. It begins with a subtle but powerful shift in your internal language. When a surge of fear about the next day arises, notice the instinct to say, "I am so anxious." Feel the weight of that "I," the way it fuses you completely with the feeling. Now, consciously, try a different phrasing. Say to yourself, "Ah, anxiety is present," or "A feeling of anxiety is arising in the body and mind." Can you feel the difference? The second phrasing creates a space. It shifts you from being the victim of the emotion to being the witness of it. The anxiety is no longer a statement about your identity. It is an observation of an impersonal event in the mind stream. When your mind is racing with plans and worries, instead of thinking, "My mind is out of control," try, "The river of the mind is flowing very quickly right now." This simple reframing stops you from adding a second layer of suffering, the layer of judgment and fear about the state of your mind on top of the initial restlessness. You are not a broken machine that needs to be fixed. You are a vast, mysterious, and ever-changing river of life. The thoughts that trouble you in the night are not evidence of your failure, but are simply the natural currents and eddies of this river. They are driftwood, leaves, and silt carried along by the flow. Your work is not to build a dam to stop the river, for that would only create a destructive flood. Your work is to cultivate the wisdom and compassion, to sit peacefully on the bank, to watch the water flow, to understand its nature. By knowing that the river is always changing, you find peace in its impermanence. By knowing that there is no separate you being threatened by the current, you find freedom in its selflessness. This profound shift in view is the ground upon which all true practice is built. It moves us from a state of war with ourselves to a state of curious and compassionate exploration. Having understood the nature of the river, we can now begin to investigate what influences its flow, what actions, what intentions determine whether the river runs clear and calm or turbulent and muddy. This leads us directly to the great law of cause and effect, the law of karma, and how the seeds we plant in the daylight bloom in the darkness of our sleep. Having come to see the mind not as a broken machine, but as a flowing river, we are faced with a new and vital question. What determines the character of this river? Why is it that on some nights the current flows with a placid, glassy clarity, while on others it is a raging, muddy torrent, filled with debris and dangerous undercurrents? The answer lies in one of the most profound and often misunderstood concepts in all of Buddhist thought. It is the natural law of cause and effect, known in the ancient Pali language as karma, or as it is more commonly known in the West, karma. This single word holds the key to understanding why our nights are the way they are. And more importantly, it hands us the power to consciously shape the peace we so deeply crave. Before we proceed, we must first clear the ground of a great deal of confusion. In the popular imagination, karma is often perceived as a form of cosmic justice, a mystical balancing of a universal scorecard, or a system of punishment and reward meted out by some unseen deity. This is not the Buddhist understanding. Karma is not about fate, destiny, or divine retribution. It is something far more intimate, practical, and immediate. The word karma literally means action, or more specifically, intentional action. The Buddha stated this with absolute clarity. It is intention, I tell you, that is karma. Having intended, one acts through body, speech, and mind. Karma, then, is a natural law, as impersonal and reliable as the law of gravity. If you release an apple from your hand, it will fall. There is no judgment involved. It is simply the nature of things. In the same way, an action born of a certain intention will inevitably produce a result of a corresponding quality. This is the heart of the matter. Our present moment is the result of our past actions, and our future moments are being shaped by our actions right now. To make this more tangible, let us exchange our metaphor of the river for that of a garden. Imagine that your mind, your stream of consciousness, is a plot of incredibly fertile soil. Every moment of your waking life, you are the gardener, and you are planting seeds. These seeds are your intentional actions, the actions of your body, the words that you speak, and most powerfully, the thoughts that you cultivate in your mind. Each one is a seed dropped into the rich soil of your consciousness. The law of karma is simply the law of agriculture. If you plant the seed of a tomato, you will not harvest a cucumber. If you plant the seed of a poisonous weed, you will not harvest a beautiful flower. The harvest is always in accordance with the seed. The quality of our lives, our happiness, our suffering, and yes, the quality of our sleep, is the harvest of the seeds we have been planting all day long. Let us look at the kinds of seeds we sow. In Buddhist psychology, they are divided into two fundamental categories. The first are the unwholesome or unskillful seeds. These are actions rooted in what are known as the three poisons: greed, hatred, and delusion. Greed is the energy of grasping, of wanting more, of feeling a constant sense of lack. In our daily lives, this is the desperate chase for more money, more recognition, more followers on social media. It is the feeling that if only we had that one more thing, then we would be happy. Hatred is the energy of aversion, of pushing away. It manifests as the flash of road rage in traffic, the sarcastic comment made at a colleague's expense, the angry screed typed out on a keyboard, the subtle but corrosive judgment we hold against our neighbor, or even against ourselves. And delusion is the state of confusion, of not seeing things clearly. It is the state of living on autopilot, mindlessly consuming sensationalist news or violent entertainment, believing that lasting happiness can be found in fleeting external pleasures, and ignoring the true nature of our own inner world. Every time we act, speak, or even think from a place of greed, anger, or confusion, we are dropping a bitter, thorny seed into the garden of our mind. Conversely, there are the wholesome or skillful seeds. These are actions rooted in the antidotes to the three poisons: non-greed, non-hatred, and non-delusion. Non-greed is the energy of generosity and letting go. It is not just about giving money, it is about giving our time, our full and undivided attention to our child or our partner. It is the simple act of letting someone else go ahead of us in line. It is a letting go of the need to always be right. Non-hatred is the boundless energy of loving kindness and compassion. It is the patient response given when an angry one was expected. It is the silent thought of goodwill sent to a person we see struggling. It is the profound practice of offering compassion to our own imperfections and failings. And non-delusion is the energy of wisdom and clarity. It is the conscious choice to put down the phone and watch a sunset. It is the moment of pausing to take a single, mindful breath before reacting to a stressful situation. It is the intention to understand ourselves and the world with more clarity. Every time we perform an act of generosity, speak a word of kindness, or cultivate a thought of compassion, we are planting a fragrant, life-giving seed in the soil of our consciousness. Now, here is the crucial link to our nights. All day long, we are busy, distracted, and engaged with the external world. The conscious mind, the gardener, is actively managing the surface of the garden. But when we lie down to sleep, the conscious gardener goes off duty. The light of focused attention is switched off, and in the darkness, the soil of the mind is left to its own devices. This is when the seeds we have planted throughout the day begin to germinate. If our day was a whirlwind of stressful meetings, angry traffic, and anxious scrollinga day, spent planting the seeds of aversion and delusion, what kind of harvest can we expect in the night? These seeds sprout in the fertile darkness of our subconscious. The echoes of the day's arguments become the scripts for our anxious dreams. The residue of our unexpressed anger manifests as a clenching in the jaw, a tension in the body that prevents deep rest. The agitation we absorbed from the news becomes the frantic, restless energy that keeps our mind racing. The night becomes a cinema that plays back the horror movies we funded with our own actions during the day. But what if the day was spent planting different seeds? What if we made a conscious effort to plant a few seeds of patience in traffic? A few seeds of genuine listening with our family, a few seeds of generosity by letting something small go, a few seeds of mindfulness by taking short breaks to just breathe. These seeds also lie dormant in the soil of the mind, and when the night comes, they too begin to sprout. The warmth of a compassionate exchange becomes a blanket of peace that envelops us. The quiet satisfaction of a mindful moment becomes the foundation for a serene and spacious dreamscape. The feeling of connection from an act of kindness soothes the nervous system, allowing the body to surrender into deep, restorative rest. The fruits of the night are a direct reflection of the seeds of the day. The story is told of a farmer who owned a beautiful, fertile field. He longed for a harvest of sweet, succulent mangoes. He worked hard, tilling the soil, ensuring it was perfectly prepared. But when it came time to plant, he was careless. In his haste, he grabbed a sack of seeds from his shed, not realizing they were the seeds of a bitter, inedible gourd. He scattered them throughout his field and went about his business. When harvest time came, he returned to his field with great anticipation, only to find it covered in vines, bearing nothing but horribly bitter fruits. The farmer was furious. He cursed the soil, he blamed the weather, he lamented his bad luck. But the soil was perfect. The weather had been kind, His luck had nothing to do with it. The harvest was bitter for one simple reason. He had planted bitter seeds. This story teaches us the essence of karma. It is a call to take responsibility, but not to take blame. These are two very different things. Blame is heavy, it looks backwards, and it is rooted in self-judgment. If you had a restless night, filled with anxious dreams, the path of blame says, I am a bad person. I did things wrong. I am flawed. This only plants more seeds of aversion. The path of responsibility, however, is light. It looks forward, and it is rooted in wisdom. It says, ah, I see. The harvest was restless. This is simply feedback. It is information. It shows me the kinds of seeds I have been planting. What seeds can I choose to plant today, in this very moment, to cultivate a more peaceful harvest tonight? This is an incredibly empowering realization. You are the gardener. The power is in your hands, right now. You do not need to wait for conditions to be perfect. Every single moment offers a choice. In the face of irritation, you can plant a seed of anger or a seed of patience. When interacting with another, you can plant a seed of judgment or a seed of kindness. In your own mind, you can allow the weeds of worry to grow, or you can intentionally plant a flower of gratitude. Having now understood why the mind is restless through the lens of the hindrances, what the mind truly is as a flowing river, and how the quality of that river is conditioned by the law of karma, we are perfectly poised to take the first practical step. We need a tool. We need a way to begin calming the waters of the river, a way to consciously start planting wholesome seeds in the garden of the mind. The most powerful, the most accessible, and the most fundamental tool we have is always with us. It requires no equipment, and it costs nothing. It is the very foundation of our life. It is our breath. We will now learn how to turn to this humble, constant companion and discover within it a sanctuary of profound peace. We have journeyed through the landscape of the mind, identifying the hindrances that disturb its peace and understanding its nature as a flowing river, conditioned by the seeds of our daily actions. This knowledge is illuminating, but it can also feel abstract, even overwhelming. One might lie in bed, with the river of the mind raging, and think, this is all very insightful, but what can I possibly do, right now, in this moment of turmoil, to find relief? The Buddhist path, in its profound wisdom, does not leave us with theory alone. It offers a practice, a direct and tangible tool that is so simple, so immediate, and so powerful that it can become the very center of our spiritual life. It is not something you need to acquire, for you already possess it. It is not somewhere you need to go, for it is always right here. This tool, this sanctuary, this steadfast friend, is your own breath. The invitation of this practice is not to learn a complex new skill, but to come home to a rhythm you have known since the moment of your birth. Why the breath? Of all the things we could focus on, why does this simple, repetitive function of the body hold such a revered place in contemplative traditions? The breath has several unique qualities that make it the perfect anchor for the mind. Firstly, it is always with us. It is the constant, underlying rhythm of our life, a faithful companion from our first cry to our final exhalation. You do not need a special cushion, a quiet room, or a specific time of day. Wherever you are, as long as you are alive, the breath is there, a sanctuary available in any circumstance. Secondly, and most crucially, the breath is always in the present moment. You cannot take a breath that is in the past, nor can you inhale a breath that is in the future. The physical sensation of breathing is happening only and ever now. As we have seen, the restless mind, the monkey mind, lives almost exclusively in the realms of past and future, swinging between regret and worry. By gently placing our attention on the simple sensation of breathing, we tether the mind to the present, pulling it away from its frantic time traveling. It is the most direct and effective way to interrupt the momentum of anxious thought. Furthermore, the breath serves as the ultimate bridge between the body and the mind, the seen and the unseen. It is a unique process that operates on both an involuntary and a voluntary level. Your autonomic nervous system keeps you breathing without any conscious thought, Yet you can also choose to hold your breath, or to breathe more deeply or more quickly. This dual nature means it is intimately connected to our mental states. When we are anxious or angry, our breath becomes shallow, rapid, and erratic. When we are calm and relaxed, our breath becomes slow, deep, and regular. But this is a two-way street. Just as the mind affects the breath can affect the mind. By consciously inviting the breath to become slower and deeper, we send a powerful signal to our nervous system that says, it is safe to relax, the danger has passed. We can use the voluntary aspect of breath to influence its involuntary aspect, and in doing so, we can gently guide our entire being from a state of agitation to a state of calm. It is a direct, biological pathway to peace. So, how do we practice? The beauty of mindfulness of breath, or anapanasati, lies in its simplicity. Let us walk through it, step by step, with gentleness as our only rule. As you are lying in your bed, preparing for sleep, there is no need to adopt a formal, rigid posture. Simply allow your body to be comfortable. Let your hands rest wherever they feel natural. Close your eyes softly. Begin by making a gentle, silent intention. For these next few moments, my only task is to feel the sensation of my own breathing. Now, bring your awareness to the place in your body where the breath is most vivid for you. For some, this is at the tip of the nostrils. You might notice the subtle coolness of the air as it enters, and the slight warmth of the air as it leaves. There is no need to imagine it. Just feel the direct, physical sensation. For others, the sensation is more prominent in the chest, feeling the gentle expansion on the inhalation and the subtle release on the exhalation. For many, the most calming anchor is the abdomen, feeling the soft rise as the diaphragm contracts on the in-breath and the gentle fall as it relaxes on the out-breath. Choose whichever anchor point feels clearest to you tonight. There is no right or wrong answer. Once you have found your anchor, the instruction is simply this: rest your attention there. Feel one full breath from the beginning of the inhalation all the way through to the end of the exhalation, and then feel the next one. The most important instruction of all is to not control the breath. Your body has been breathing perfectly on its own your entire life. It does not need your help now. Your task is not to do the breathing, but to receive it. Be a passive observer, a curious witness to this natural, life-giving rhythm. Imagine you are sitting on the shore of an ocean, simply watching the waves as they come in and go out. You are not creating the waves. You are merely noticing their ceaseless, gentle pattern. Your breath is just like these waves. Now, you will discover a universal truth. After a few breaths, perhaps only one or two, your mind will wander. It will be carried away by a thought, a plan, a memory, a sound. This is not a mistake. This is not a sign that you are failing or that you are bad at meditation. This is simply what minds do. The practice does not lie in forcing the mind to stay on the breath. The true practice, the moment of magic, is the moment you realize your mind has wandered. In that moment of realizing, you have just woken up. You have just been mindful. And what do you do then? With infinite gentleness, without any judgment or frustration, you simply guide your attention back to the physical sensation of the breath. If you have to do this 100 times, you are not a 100-time failure. You are a 100-time success, because you have woken up and returned 100 times. Think of your attention as a curious puppy, and the breath as its home. The puppy will constantly wander off to sniff at interesting things. Your job, as its kind owner, is not to scold it, but to gently, patiently, and lovingly guide it back home, over and over again. For those whose minds feel especially turbulent, a simple support can be helpful. You can begin to count the breaths. As you inhale, mentally note 1. As you exhale, 1. Inhale, 2. Exhale, 2. Count up to 10, and then gently begin again at 1. If you lose your place, or find yourself at 27, simply smile and begin again at 1. The numbers are just a gentle leash for the puppy of the mind. As you rest in this practice, something remarkable begins to happen without any effort on your part. Imagine a glass of water filled with fine sand. that has been shaken vigorously. The water is cloudy, opaque, and turbulent. This is the mind caught in the hindrances. If you want the water to become clear, you do not need to plunge your hands in and try to grab every grain of sand. All you need to do is set the glass down and let it be still. By its own nature, through the gentle pull of gravity, the sand will slowly, gracefully settle to the bottom, leaving the water transparent and clear. Your mind is this glass of water. The practice of resting your attention on the breath is the act of setting the glass down. By returning again and again to this simple, neutral anchor, you are creating a condition of stillness, and the sediment of your anxious thoughts, your plans, your worries, begins to settle naturally. You may feel your shoulders, which were tensed up by your ears, begin to drop. You may notice the muscles in your jaw, which were clenched tight, begin to soften. A sense of spaciousness may begin to open up within you. You are not forcing this to happen. You are simply creating the conditions for peace to reveal itself. There is a beautiful analogy for this practice. An ancient carpenter, before making a cut in a large piece of timber, would not trust his eyes alone to make a straight line. He would take a tool called a chalk linear string coated in chalk dust. He would hold one end, have an apprentice hold the other, pull the string taut across the wood, and then snap it. The string would strike the timber, leaving a perfectly straight, clear chalk line to guide his saw. Amidst the rough, uneven grain of the wood, he now had a line of truth. In the chaotic, uneven, and confusing landscape of our mind, the breath is our chalk line. When we are lost in thought, we can snap the line of the breath, bringing our attention to it for a single inhalation and exhalation. It immediately gives us a reference point, a line of sanity, a path of presence to guide us back from the wilderness of our distractions. The breath is our anchor in the storm of thought, our truest friend, our most accessible sanctuary. It is the first and most fundamental step in taking the abstract knowledge of the mind and turning it into a lived, felt experience of peace. Every conscious breath is an act of profound self-compassion, a seed of tranquility planted in the garden of the mind. And now that we have found our anchor, now that we have a tool to steady ourselves, we can begin to build a conscious structure around it. We can learn to transform the mundane routine of getting ready for bed into a sacred and protective container for our practice, a ritual that signals to our body and mind that it is time to let go of the day and enter the sanctuary of the night. Having discovered the breath as our ever-present anchor, a tool to bring us back from the wilderness of thought to the sanctuary of the present moment, we can now begin to expand this practice outwards. The mind does not exist in a vacuum. It is in constant dialogue with our environment and our actions. While we can find peace by focusing inward on the breath, that peace can be fragile if we continue to immerse ourselves in a chaotic and stimulating environment right up until the moment we close our eyes. The journey from the frantic activity of our day to the deep surrender of sleep is one of the most important and most neglected transitions we make. All too often, we make no transition at all. We carry the battlefield of our workday, with its emails, its deadlines, and its dramas, directly onto the pillow, and then wonder why we cannot find peace. The wisdom of this path teaches us to honor this transition, to transform the mundane routine of getting ready for bed into a conscious, mindful, and sacred ritual. The word ritual may sound serious or complex, but it is simply a way of bringing intention and awareness to a series of actions. We already have rituals that govern our lives. The ritual of a morning coffee prepares the mind for the day's tasks. The ritual of a shared meal strengthens the bonds of a family. Rituals are powerful because they speak to the deeper, non-verbal parts of our consciousness. They are a form of embodied psychology. They create clear boundaries in time, sending a powerful signal to our body and mind that one state is ending and another is beginning. By consciously crafting an evening ritual, a sacred pause, we are creating a buffer zone between the world of doing and the world of being. We are telling our entire nervous system, on a cellular level, that the time for striving, for defending, for analyzing, and for achieving is over. The time for letting go, for softening, for receiving, and for resting has begun. This is not about adding more tasks to an already exhausting day. It is about infusing the tasks we already do with a new quality of attention, transforming them from mindless chores into acts of profound self-care. The first, and arguably most crucial, step in this sacred pause is what we might call the Great Disconnection. Our modern world is a world of luminous screens, each one a portal to a universe of endless information, stimulation, and agitation. Our phones, tablets, and computers are magnificent tools, but they are also relentless engines of the five hindrances. The endless scroll of social media is a fire hose of sensory desire and ill will, fueling comparison and envy. The 24-hour news cycle is a direct IV drip of restlessness and worry. A late-night work email can trigger a tidal wave of anxiety. Beyond the content, the very light from these screens, particularly the blue spectrum light, sends a signal to our brain's pineal gland that it is still daytime, suppressing the production of melatonin, the essential hormone that regulates our sleep-wake cycle. In essence, by staying plugged in until the last possible moment, we are actively, though unconsciously, telling our bodies to stay awake and telling our minds to remain agitated. Therefore, the most loving act you can perform for your own well-being is to establish an electronic sundown. Choose a time, perhaps an hour, or even just 30 minutes before you intend to be asleep, and declare it a sacred, screen-free period. Power down the laptop. Place your phone on its charger, preferably in another room, and let it rest for the night. When you first do this, you may notice a feeling of unease, a slight panic, a boredom, an urge to just check one more thing. This is the mind seeking its habitual stimulus. Do not fight it. Greet this feeling with the breath. Acknowledge the urge, feel it in your body, and gently return to the sensation of your breathing. This act of disconnecting is not a deprivation, it is a liberation. It is a gift of silence and space that you give to your own weary mind. It is the first step in reclaiming the sanctity of your evening. Having created this space of quiet, what do we do with it? We now have the opportunity to engage our senses in ways that calm, rather than agitate, our nervous system. This is where you can create a personal ritual that feels nurturing to you. Consider the sense of taste. You might prepare a warm, non-caffeinated drink, like a cup of chamomile tea or warm milk, but transform this simple act into a meditation. As you boil the water, listen to the sound it makes. As you pour it, watch the steam rise. Hold the warm mug in both hands and feel its heat seep into your palms. Before you drink, take a moment to inhale the aroma. And when you finally sip, do so slowly, tasting it fully, without any other distraction. In these 5 minutes, you have performed a profound act of mindfulness, grounding yourself completely in the present moment through your senses. Consider the sense of touch and smell. A warm bath or shower can be transformed from a rushed hygienic task into a ritual of purification. Feel the sensation of the warm water on your skin. Imagine it washing away not just the dirt of the day, but the accumulated stress and tension. Notice the scent of the soap or the bath oils, allowing calming aromas like lavender or sandalwood to soothe your mind. This is not just about getting clean. It is about cleansing the mind and body of the day's psychic residue. You can also shift your sense of sound. Instead of the jarring and emotionally manipulative sounds of television, you could choose to listen to gentle, instrumental music. You could play a recording of natural sounds, like falling rain or ocean waves. Or, most powerfully, you could embrace the sound of silence itself, allowing your ears to adjust to the subtle, ambient noises of your home, learning to find comfort in the absence of man-made noise. Even a few moments of gentle, mindful stretching can release the physical armor we build up during the day, softening the muscles in the neck, shoulders, and back where we so often store our anxiety. This ritual also provides an opportunity to nourish the mind with wholesome food, rather than the junk food of digital media. This is a perfect time to engage with wisdom. Keep a book of insightful teachings by your bedside. It could be the gentle wisdom of a Zen master, the profound poetry of Rumi, the practical philosophy of the Stoics, or the serene verses of the Tao Te Ching. Reading just 1 or 2 pages, allowing the words to sink in without strenuous analysis, plants seeds of clarity and peace directly into the soil of the mind right before sleep. Another powerful practice is to spend a few minutes with a journal. You can use it to write down 3 things you were grateful for during the day, a practice that actively shifts the mind's focus from lack to abundance. Or you can use it to perform a mind dump, writing down all the worries, plans, and unresolved issues that are swimming in your head. The act of externalizing them onto the page can be incredibly liberating, allowing you to let them go for the night, trusting that they will be there for you to deal with in the morning if need be. There is a simple Zen story that captures the essence of this entire practice. A young, eager student approaches a great Zen master and asks, "Master, please teach me the secret of enlightenment." The master, who has just finished his simple meal of rice and vegetables, looks at the student and says, "Have you washed your bowl?" The student, a bit confused, replies that yes, he has. The master nods and says, "Then you have received your teaching. The secret is not in some distant, esoteric knowledge. The secret is in the absolute, undivided attention we bring to the simplest acts of our lives. The path to peace is found in washing our bowl, in sipping our tea, in feeling the water on our skin, in brushing our teeth. When these mundane actions are infused with mindful presence, they cease to be mundane and become sacred. They become the very fabric of our practice. This evening ritual, this sacred pause, is an act of profound kindness to yourself. It is a declaration that your peace is worth protecting. You are creating a container, a serene and beautiful space, both in your outer environment and your inner landscape. You have calmed the waters of the mind stream with the breath, and you have prepared the soil of the mind with these mindful actions. The ground is now fertile, receptive, and quiet. Having created this perfect condition, you are now ready to take the next step. You are ready to consciously and lovingly plant a specific seed of intention, a guiding light that will illuminate your journey through the mysterious realms of sleep and dreams. Having mindfully navigated the transition from day to night, having calmed the body and settled the mind with the anchor of the breath, we arrive at a very special and potent moment. We are standing at a threshold. The sacred pause has created a space of receptive quiet. The soil of the mind, once hard-packed and overrun with the weeds of the day, has been softened and prepared. It is now fertile ground, waiting. The question before us is a beautiful one. What shall we plant in this garden for the night? Too often, we tumble into sleep by accident, falling into unconsciousness as the last wave of the day's anxiety or exhaustion crashes over us. We drift into the vast ocean of the night without a map, without a compass, without a destination, and then we are surprised when we find ourselves tossed about by turbulent currents. The practice of setting an intention is the conscious, loving act of choosing our destination. It is the art of planting a specific, wholesome seed in the prepared soil of the mind, a seed that will grow in the darkness, guiding our inner journey towards peace, healing, and wisdom. The power of this practice lies in a simple truth about our own consciousness. The mind is a faithful servant. Our deeper, subconscious mind is not an enemy to be conquered. It is an incredibly powerful and responsive field of energy that tends to follow the directions it is given. It listens carefully to the last thoughts and feelings we entertain before we surrender our conscious control. If our final waking moments are filled with dread about tomorrow's meeting or replaying an angry conversation, we are, in effect, giving our subconscious mind a set of instructions. Tonight's theme is anxiety. Please run all related programs, and it faithfully obliges, weaving our fears into the fabric of our dreams and our physical state. An intention is a way of consciously overriding this default programming. It is a clear, kind, and deliberate instruction offered to the deeper mind. It is like meeting with the captain of a great ship before a long voyage into the night. We give the captain a single, shining star to navigate by. Without this guiding star, the ship is left to drift aimlessly, at the mercy of any passing storm. With it, every current, every wave, every gust of wind can be skillfully navigated in service of reaching that chosen harbor. Here we must make a crucial distinction, one that is essential for this practice to be a source of peace and not another source of stress. We must clearly distinguish between an intention and an expectation. This is perhaps the most important secret to this art. An expectation is rigid, hard, and attached to a specific result. An expectation sounds like this: I must get 8 hours of perfect sleep tonight, or I must not have any nightmares. An expectation is a demand you place upon reality. It creates a goal, and if that goal is not met, the result is a sense of failure, frustration, and self-criticism. It turns your rest into another performance to be graded. It is a contract with the universe, and it is a recipe for suffering, because the universe rarely signs our contracts. An intention, on the other hand, is soft, gentle, and open-ended. It is not about a result. It is about a direction. It is a heartfelt wish, a loving aspiration, a gentle suggestion offered to your own deeper wisdom. An intention sounds like this: may my body and mind find the rest they need tonight, or may I be open to the healing power of sleep. An intention is an offering, not a demand. It is like whispering a prayer into a well and letting it go. There is no failure in setting an intention, because the act itself, the conscious turning of the mind towards a wholesome direction, is the victory. Think of it this way: an expectation is gripping the arrow tightly, trying to force it into the target. An intention is drawing the bow, aiming with care, and then lovingly releasing the arrow, trusting its flight, without needing to control its landing. This practice invites you to become a master of the gentle release, not the forceful grip. So, what kinds of intentions can we set? The possibilities are as vast as your own heart. It is best to choose one that resonates most deeply with what you need on any given night. You can think of them in a few different categories. There are intentions for healing and restoration. These might sound like: tonight, I offer my body to the wisdom of sleep for deep healing and renewal. Or, may every cell in my body be bathed in restorative peace as I rest. You are inviting your body's innate intelligence to do its work without interference. There are intentions for releasing and letting go, which are powerful when you feel burdened by the day's events. You might formulate it as I exhale, I release the tensions of the day. As I sleep, I release all that no longer serves me. Or, I release the need to understand everything. I release the need to control. Tonight, I surrender to the flow of rest. This gives the subconscious permission to process and discharge accumulated stress. And there are intentions for insight and wisdom, for those who wish to approach their sleep as a space of learning. These could sound like: I invite my deeper wisdom to communicate with me through my dreams tonight. Or, may I greet whatever arises in my dreams with curiosity and courage. Or even, I intend to remember that I am dreaming, and to explore that space with clarity. These intentions can open up a richer and more meaningful relationship with your dream life. The key is to phrase them in a way that feels authentic to you, using gentle language like "may I," or "I invite," or "I am open to." The practice itself is beautifully simple. It should be the very last conscious, volitional act you perform before you let go into sleep. After you have completed your evening ritual, after you have spent some time resting with the anchor of your breath and feel a sense of calm, you bring your chosen intention to mind. Close your eyes and silently, in the quiet of your own heart, state the intention. Repeat it 3 times, slowly and clearly. But this is not a mechanical recitation. As you say the words, try to feel their meaning. If your intention is for peace, feel a little glimmer of peace in your body. If it is for release, feel a subtle softening in your shoulders. You are not just thinking the words. You are planting them with the warmth of your own heartfelt energy. And after you have stated your intention for the 3rd time, the final and most important step is to let it go completely. You have planted the seed. Your work is done. Do not check to see if it's working. Do not worry if you did it right. Simply release it and let your awareness dissolve back into the simple, raw sensation of the breath, allowing it to carry you like a gentle wave into the ocean of sleep. There is a powerful image for this practice, that of a master archer. An archer who wishes to hit the center of a distant target does not simply pull back the bowstring and release it randomly. The first and most vital act is to set her gaze on the target. She focuses her eyes, her mind, and her breath on that single point until the distinction between herself and the target begins to blur. This unwavering focus, this clear aim, is what aligns her entire being and allows the arrow, when finally released, to fly true. Our minds, left to their own devices, are like a quiver full of arrows being shot randomly into the dark. We have no idea where they will land. The act of setting an intention is the act of the archer choosing her target. By focusing our last conscious moments on a noble, beautiful, and healing aim, we align all the subtle energies of our consciousness towards that goal. We give our inner world a clear and worthy direction to follow as it journeys through the night. Setting an intention is a profound shift from being a passive victim of your nightly experience to becoming a conscious participant in your own well-being. It transforms sleep from a simple biological necessity into a purposeful spiritual practice. You are no longer just crashing at the end of the day. You are embarking on a journey, and you have given your vessel a rudder and a guiding star. Now that we have established this powerful principle of setting an aim, we can turn our attention to what is perhaps the most potent and transformative intention we can cultivate. It is an intention that works as a direct antidote to the poisons of fear, anger, and isolation. It is an intention that wraps the mind in a layer of profound warmth and safety, creating the ideal conditions for deep and fearless rest. This is the practice of radiating loving kindness, or metta. Having learned to craft an intention, to choose a guiding star for our nightly voyage, we now arrive at a practice that is not just an intention, but a profound transformation of the heart itself. It is a practice that serves as a direct and powerful antidote to the cold, contracting emotions that so often haunt the darkness, the fear that makes us feel small, the resentment that makes us feel bitter, and the loneliness that makes us feel isolated. This practice is the cultivation of what is known in the Pali language as metta. The word is often translated as loving kindness, but it can also be understood as unconditional friendliness, gentle goodwill, or a radiant, heartfelt warmth. It is the act of tending to a gentle flame within your own chest until it grows into a sun that illuminates your entire being, dissolving the shadows of aversion and fear. To practice metta before midnight is to consciously wrap yourself in the safest, most comforting blanket in the universe, a blanket woven from your own capacity for boundless love. What is this loving kindness? It is essential to understand that metta is not the ordinary, conditional love we are accustomed to. It is not the romantic love that is often intertwined with attachment and desire. It is not the transactional affection that says, "I will love you if you meet my needs." It is not even familial love, which can sometimes be complicated by duty and history. Metta is far simpler and more fundamental. It is a benevolent, warm, and friendly wish for a being to be well, to be happy, and to be free from suffering. It asks for nothing in return. It does not depend on whether we like someone or whether they have been kind to us. It is an offering freely given. Think of the sun. The sun shines its warmth down on everything, without discrimination, on the beautiful flower and the thorny weed, on the saint and the sinner, on the smooth stone and the jagged rock. It does not decide who is worthy of its warmth. It simply radiates. Metta is the practice of cultivating this same unconditional, radiant quality within our own hearts. It is the direct medicine for the poison of ill will and a soothing balm for the cold grip of fear. When we feel anger, our world shrinks. When we feel fear, our world shrinks. When we cultivate metta, our world expands, and we become a source of safety for ourselves. The practice of metta meditation is a systematic journey of the heart, a structured way to awaken this innate warmth and expand it in ever-widening circles. As you lie comfortably in your bed, having quieted your body and anchored your mind with the breath, you can begin this gentle radiation. The practice traditionally unfolds in several stages. The first, and for many the most challenging stage, is to offer metta to yourself. For so many of us, steeped in a culture of self-criticism and relentless striving, this can feel awkward or even impossible. Be patient with yourself. This is the most important foundation. If your own vessel is empty, you have nothing to pour for others. Begin by bringing your awareness to your own being, lying here in this bed. Acknowledge your own deep wish to be happy and free from pain. Then, you can silently repeat a few simple, heartfelt phrases. The classic phrases are, may I be safe, may I be healthy, may I be happy, may I live with ease. Choose these phrases, or any others that resonate with you. Perhaps, may I be peaceful, or may I be free from suffering. As you whisper these words in your mind, try to connect with their intention. You are not trying to force a feeling, but simply planting the seed of a wish. Repeat the phrases gently, perhaps timing them with your breath, allowing their kind intention to slowly permeate your body and mind. Once you have established a little warmth for yourself, the second stage is to extend it to someone for whom you feel easy, uncomplicated love. Bring to mind a dear friend, a beloved mentor, a cherished family member, or even a pet. Picture them in your mind's eye, see their face, and feel the natural smile that arises from their memory. Now, direct the same wishes towards them. Hold their image in your heart and silently radiate the phrases, may you be safe, may you be healthy, may you be happy, may you live with ease. Notice how the heart opens naturally for this person. Feel the warmth of your goodwill flowing from you to them. Rest in this feeling of easy, affectionate connection. The third stage expands the circle of care. Bring to mind a neutral person. This is someone you see or interact with, but for whom you have no strong feelings of like or dislike. It could be the cashier at your grocery store, the mail carrier, a neighbor you pass on the street. You know their face, but you do not know their story. Picture this person in your mind and recognize that just like you, and just like your loved one, this person has a deep desire to be happy and to avoid suffering. Their life is as complex and filled with challenges as your own. Seeing them in this light, extend the very same heartfelt wishes to them. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be happy. May you live with ease. This stage is powerful because it begins to break down the walls of indifference we build around ourselves. It helps us see the shared humanity in those we normally overlook. The fourth stage is the most transformative and potentially the most difficult. Here, we work with a difficult person, someone with whom we have conflict, resentment, or anger. It is wise to start with someone only mildly irritating, not the source of your deepest wounds. Acknowledge that this is challenging. If it feels too overwhelming, it is perfectly fine to return to the neutral person or the loved one. The point is not to force yourself into a false sense of forgiveness. However, if you feel ready, bring this person to mind. See them not as a monster, but as a suffering human being whose unskillful actions likely arise from their own pain and confusion. Then, as an act of profound courage and self-liberation, offer them the same phrases of metta. May you be safe. May you be healthy. You are not doing this for them. You are not condoning their actions. You are doing this for yourself. You are choosing to free your own heart from the poison of anger, which harms you far more than it harms them. To hold on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. This practice is the act of putting down the hot coal. Finally, having moved through these stages, you allow your heart to open completely. In the fifth stage, you radiate metta to all beings, everywhere, without exception. Let your awareness expand from your own body to fill the room, then your home, your neighborhood, your city, and your country. Extend this warmth to all people on the planet. Extend it to all animals, the creatures of the land, the sky, and the sea. Extend it to all beings seen and unseen, near and far, in all directions of space. Holding the entire world in your compassionate embrace, you radiate the final intention. May all beings be safe. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be happy. May all beings live with ease. Rest in this feeling of boundless, interconnected, and spacious love. You are no longer an isolated individual, but a beacon of warmth in a living, breathing world. There is a powerful story from the life of the Buddha that illustrates the power of this practice. The Buddha's jealous cousin, Devadatta, in an attempt to assassinate him, got a fierce elephant named Nalagiri drunk on toddy and released it onto the path where the Buddha was walking. The elephant, enraged and intoxicated, charged towards the Buddha, thundering and trumpeting, and the people scattered in terror. The Buddha's attendant, Ananda, tried to stand in front of him, but the Buddha gently moved him aside. He did not run. He did not prepare to fight. He simply stood his ground, and from his heart, he radiated a powerful, unwavering field of pure metta towards the charging beast. The story says that as the raging elephant entered this palpable field of loving kindness, it began to slow down. Its intoxicated fury subsided. Its steps became gentle, and when it finally reached the Buddha, it knelt down peacefully and allowed the Buddha to stroke its forehead. Our anxieties, our resentments, and our deepest fears are the raging elephants of our own minds. When they charge at us in the darkness of the night, we cannot fight them head-on, nor can we outrun them, but we can meet them with the fearless, transformative power of metta. We can tame the wild beasts of our own psyche not with aggression, but with unconditional friendliness. To practice metta before midnight is to build a sanctuary of safety inside your own heart. It is an act of profound courage and compassion that dissolves the cold grip of fear and anger, creating the perfect inner conditions for deep and fearless rest. You are no longer a vulnerable traveler bracing for a difficult night. You have become the source of your own warmth, the beacon of your own light. Having wrapped yourself in this protective cloak of boundless love, you are now perfectly prepared to venture with an open and courageous heart into the mysterious territories of consciousness that unfold when you finally surrender to sleep. Having wrapped ourselves in the profound warmth of loving kindness, we stand prepared at the gates of sleep, ready to embark on the nightly journey. But what is the nature of this journey? Our ordinary language gives us a very poor map of this terrain. We speak of falling asleep, as if it were a clumsy accident, a descent into a dark pit. We see it as a binary switch. One moment we are on and conscious, the next we are off and unconscious, in a blank and empty void that lasts until morning. This perception of sleep as an abyss of nothingness can be a source of deep, subtle, fear, nightly brush with a small death, a loss of self. However, the great contemplative traditions of the world, particularly the rich psychological insights of Tibetan Buddhism, offer us a radically different and far more empowering map. They teach that sleep is not a void, but a vibrant and dynamic journey through shifting landscapes of consciousness. They call these transitional states bardos, and understanding this map can transform our fear of the unknown into a sense of profound and sacred adventure. What, then, is a bardo? The word is Tibetan for an in-between state, a transitional period. It refers to any intermediate state between two other states. From this perspective, our entire existence is a seamless flow of bardos. There is the bardo of this waking life, from birth to death. There is the bardo of meditation, the gap between one thought and the next. And, most relevant to our exploration, there is the great bardo of the night, encompassing the journey from the moment our eyes close to the moment they open again. This view shatters the hard, artificial line we draw between being awake and being asleep. It suggests that consciousness is never truly extinguished. It simply changes its form, its quality, and its expression. Much like water can exist as solid ice, liquid water, or formless vapor. By learning the geography of this nightly journey, we can move through it with less fear and more wisdom, recognizing the different stages not as a loss of control, but as a natural and profound unfolding of our own mind. The journey begins with the first bardo of the night, the bardo of falling asleep. This is a process of dissolution, a systematic and peaceful letting go of our connection to the waking world. It is described in these traditions as the dissolving of the elements that constitute our physical and mental experience. First, the earth element dissolves. This corresponds to a physical sensation of heaviness, as if you are sinking into your bed. The sense of solidity and structure begins to fade, and the body feels inert. Then, the water element, which represents cohesion, dissolves. The body's liquids seem to dry up, and we lose our sense of fluidity. Following this, the fire element, which governs warmth and metabolism, dissolves. You might notice the body's heat withdrawing from the hands and feet, consolidating in the center of the body. Next, the air element dissolves. This is the most noticeable stage, as our breathing, which has been our anchor, becomes extremely shallow and slow, sometimes with long pauses between breaths. It can feel as if the breath has almost stopped. Finally, our conceptual consciousness, the space element, dissolves. The familiar world of thoughts, plans, and internal chatter fades away, like a radio being tuned to static and then switched off. For a mind that is unprepared, this dissolution can feel like annihilation, triggering a jolt of panic that brings us back to full wakefulness. But for a mind that has been steadied by the breath and softened by metta, it is experienced as a natural, peaceful surrender. At the very end of this dissolution, having passed through all the gates, we enter the most subtle and profound phase of the journey, the second bardo, the bardo of deep, dreamless sleep. From our conventional Western viewpoint, this state is a complete blank, a neurological blackout. But from the perspective of these wisdom traditions, it is the most significant moment of the night. This is the moment when our individual, egoic consciousness, with all its stories, memories, and anxieties, dissolves completely back into its fundamental nature. This nature is known as the ground consciousness, or more poetically, the clear light, or primordial luminosity. It is the ultimate nature of mind itself, vast, open, peaceful, and completely free of thought or concept. It is like a single, troubled drop of water, finally merging back into the boundless, crystal-clear ocean from which it came. For the vast majority of us, we pass through this state in a state of deep ignorance, completely unaware of its presence. It is a total blackout. Yet, the great masters of these traditions trained for years to be able to maintain a subtle, thread-like continuity of awareness even in this profound state. For our purposes as beginners, we do not need to achieve this. Simply knowing that this state of deep sleep is not an empty void, but a return to our own most basic, peaceful, and luminous nature is deeply comforting. It removes the fear of non-existence. We are not being annihilated every night. We are coming home. The metaphor of water in its different states is a perfect guide here. Our normal waking consciousness is like ice. It is solid, structured, seemingly stable and fixed. We have a strong sense of a solid I with a definite personality and a clear separation between ourselves and the world. Our dreaming consciousness, which we will explore next, is like liquid water. It is fluid, dynamic, and constantly changing. Forms arise within it, people, places, stories, but they are not solid. They shift and merge into one another. The sense of I is still present, but it is much more pliable and less defined. And the consciousness of deep, dreamless sleep is like water vapor or a fine, clear mist. It is formless, boundless, and transparent. It has returned to its most fundamental and essential nature, a state of pure potential before it has condensed into any particular form. The crucial insight is this: ice, liquid, and vapor are all, in essence, just H2O. Waking, dreaming, and deep sleep are all, in essence, just consciousness. The fundamental nature is never lost. It only changes its expression. From the boundless ocean of the clear light, a subtle movement begins. Driven by the force of our karmic habits and latent tendencies, the mind begins to stir. These are the karmic winds that begin to blow across the face of the deep. This stirring causes consciousness to once again condense out of its formless state and take on form. This marks the beginning of the third bardo of the night, the bardo of dreaming. In this state, the mind, a natural and irrepressible storyteller, begins to weave narratives. It creates an illusory dream body for us to inhabit, and a vast, ever-changing dream world for us to explore. This is a highly creative, spontaneous, and revealing process, as the mind constructs its theater from the emotional residue, the memories, and the unresolved conflicts of our waking life. Thus, the journey of the night is revealed not as a fall into a black hole, but as a profound and cyclical pilgrimage. We begin with a conscious dissolution of our waking self, a letting go of the world of form. We then have the opportunity to touch, however briefly and unconsciously, the boundless peace of our own fundamental nature, the clear light of the mind. And from that ground of being, we re-emerge into the vibrant, creative, and illusory theater of our dreams. Merely understanding this map can begin to transform our entire relationship with sleep. The fear of the unknown is replaced by a sense of reverence for a deep and mysterious process. It is no longer a nightly oblivion, but a sacred journey. And of all the landscapes we travel through on this journey, the one that offers us the most immediate and accessible opportunity for practice, insight, and self-discovery is that rich, symbolic, and often bewildering territory of the dream. We are now ready to place our full attention on this third bardo, to learn how to approach our dreams not as random nonsense, but as a luminous mirror reflecting the deepest truths of our own heart and mind. Having journeyed through the transitional states of sleep and arrived in the vibrant, creative landscape of the bardo of dreaming, we find ourselves faced with a profound opportunity. For millennia, humanity has been fascinated by dreams, seeing them as cryptic messages from the gods, omens of the future, or tangled knots of psychological complexes to be unraveled. We have an innate sense that these nightly narratives are not meaningless, and we yearn to understand their language. The Buddhist approach to dreams, however, gently steers us away from the traditional path of dream interpretation as a kind of fortune-telling or puzzle-solving. Instead, it offers us a far more personal and transformative view. It invites us to see our dreamscapes as a flawless, luminous mirror. This mirror does not reflect the future, nor does it necessarily hide complex, universal symbols. It reflects something far more intimate and useful, the present, moment-to-moment state of our very own mind. The critical shift we must make is from interpretation to inquiry. Interpretation seeks a definitive, external answer. It operates like a dictionary, proclaiming that a certain symbol always means a certain thing. To dream of losing your teeth means you have a fear of aging. To dream of a snake means you will be betrayed. This approach, while sometimes intriguing, can be a rigid intellectual exercise that disconnects us from the dream's true power. It places the meaning outside of ourselves, in a book or an expert's opinion. The path of inquiry, on the other hand, is an open, gentle, and deeply personal investigation. It is not concerned with what the snake is supposed to mean in general, but rather with the raw, undeniable, and immediate experience of how you felt when the snake appeared in your dream. Were you terrified? Were you captivated? Were you calm and curious? The feeling tone of the dream is the key. The emotion is the direct message from your subconscious, a clear reflection of the energies and karmic seeds that are currently active in the garden of your mind. Inquiry brings the meaning back home, to your own direct experience. To understand this, we must recognize that the language of our deeper mind is not primarily logical or verbal. Its native tongue is one of feeling, sensation, and symbolic imagery. The dream world is a place where our deepest anxieties, our unfulfilled longings, our hidden joys, and our unresolved conflicts are given the freedom to dress up in costume and act out their stories on a nightly stage. Our task is not to critique the play or decipher a secret code, but to feel the emotional atmosphere of the production. When you awaken from a dream, even a fragmented one, the most potent information you can access is its vedana, its feeling tone. Before the details and the narrative dissolve like mist in the morning sun, take a moment to lie still and ask yourself, what was the dominant feeling of that dream? Was it a feeling of frantic urgency, a feeling of profound peace, a feeling of deep sadness or loss, a feeling of exhilarating freedom? This feeling is the most authentic part of the dream's communication. It is a direct and unfiltered report on the emotional weather patterns currently moving through your inner world. Once you have identified the core feeling, you can then gently look at the themes and symbols of the dream not as dictionary entries, but as prompts for self-reflection. Do you often find yourself being chased in your dreams? Rather than asking, what does being chased mean? Ask the more intimate question, where in my waking life do I feel like I am running away from something? Is there a difficult conversation I am avoiding, a responsibility I am shirking, a truth about myself I am not ready to face? Do you have recurring dreams of being unprepared for an exam? This might not be about your school days at all. It could be a direct reflection of a waking life feeling, of being tested, of being judged, of not being good enough. Do you dream of flying? This could reflect a genuine sense of freedom and empowerment in your life, or perhaps a deep longing for it. The question is always the same. Where else in my life do I experience this same emotional energy? The dream is the smoke, and this question helps you find the fire in your waking reality. The role you play in the dream is also revealing. Are you an active participant, making choices and influencing events? Are you a helpless victim, being swept along by the narrative? Or are you a detached observer, watching the scene unfold from a distance? Your level of agency in the dream can be a powerful mirror for your sense of agency in your life. Imagine you are in a gallery, standing before a vast, abstract painting. One way to approach it is to try and identify objects. That shape looks a bit like a house, and that color could be a tree. This is a shallow analysis. A far deeper way to engage with the painting is to allow yourself to feel its mood. Is this painting chaotic and angry? Is it serene and joyful? Is it melancholic and somber? In feeling the atmosphere of the canvas, you are connecting directly with the inner state of the artist at the moment of creation. Our mind is the artist, and the dream is its nightly canvas. When we awaken, our first task is not to make a cold inventory of the objects in the painting, but to sense its emotional climate. This tells us more about the artist's own deep mind than any symbol ever could. To make this a concrete practice, it is incredibly helpful to keep a journal and a pen by your bed. The moment you awaken, before you move, before you check your phone, before you begin planning your day, lie still for a moment and gently invite the fragments of your dream to return. Do not grasp or strain for them. Simply create a quiet, welcoming space and see what arises. The first thing to capture in your journal is the feeling, tone. You might write down just a few words. Anxious and late, warm and connected, confused and lost. This is the most precious data. Then, below that, jot down any key images, characters, or plot points you can remember. Use bullet points. Don't worry about writing a perfect story. A few key phrases are enough. Running through dark hallways, trying to find my passport, laughing with my grandmother, flying over a blue ocean. Finally, and most importantly, write down the inquiry question. Where in my waking life do I feel this same sense of being late, connected, lost, free? This question is the bridge. It connects the symbolic language of the night with the lived reality of the day. The goal of this practice is not to create a library of perfectly analyzed dreams. The goal is to use the dream as a diagnostic tool, a compassionate guide that shines a light on the parts of our waking life that need more attention, more kindness, more courage. If you notice a recurring theme of sadness in your dreams, it is an invitation to be more gentle and compassionate with the sadness you experience during the day. Your dreams, in this light, are a profound gift. They are a nightly, personalized report from the front lines of your inner life, showing you exactly what karmic seeds are sprouting in your garden. By learning to listen to their emotional language with gentle, non-judgmental curiosity, you gain an invaluable ally on your path to self-understanding. You are no longer a passive spectator watching a bizarre movie. You are becoming a student of your own consciousness. This practice of compassionate inquiry is a powerful tool for navigating the majority of our dream experiences. But what happens when the mirror shows us something truly terrifying? What happens when the dreamscape becomes a landscape of our deepest fears? When the creative artist of the mind produces not a curious abstraction, but a visceral nightmare? How do we hold the mirror steady then? How do we face the reflections that we would do anything to avoid? This leads us to the next essential step in our journey, learning to work directly with the powerful energy of fear itself. As we learn to sit with the mirror of our dreams, we come to appreciate the rich tapestry of our inner life, the gentle joys, the curious landscapes, the poignant echoes of our waking world. But inevitably, there will be nights when the mirror reflects something deeply disturbing. There will be nights when the dream is not a curious film but a visceral, terrifying assault. The nightmare, we have all known its cold grip, the heart pounding in the chest, the paralysis of the limbs, the primal scream caught in the throat. The immediate, instinctual reaction to this experience is one of violent rejection. Upon waking, we desperately try to flee the memory, to turn on the lights, to shake off the lingering dread, to assure ourselves it was just a dream. We treat the nightmare as a hostile invader, an enemy that has breached our defenses. But the path of wisdom invites us to consider a radical, courageous alternative. What if the nightmare is not an attack? What if it is a desperate cry for help? What if the monster chasing us is not an external enemy, but a wounded, neglected part of our own psyche, dressed in a terrifying costume because it is the only way it can get our attention? From this compassionate perspective, a nightmare is a messenger from the disowned parts of ourselves. It is a manifestation of energies that we have suppressed, judged, or refused to acknowledge in our waking life. That terrifying figure in the shadows could be the embodiment of our own unexpressed rage. The feeling of being trapped in a collapsing building could be the physical expression of the overwhelming stress we refuse to admit we are under. The monster with the fearsome claws could be our own deep-seated grief, which we have pushed down for so long that it has to claw its way back into our awareness. Because these powerful energies are not being met with mindfulness and compassion during the day, they are forced to scream for our attention in the unfiltered, uncensored theater of the night. The nightmare, then, is not a sign that you are broken. It is a sign that a deep process of healing is calling out for your participation. It is a challenging but profound opportunity to become whole. How then do we work with these powerful, frightening energies? The practice can be broken down into 3 stages: the preparation before sleep, the courageous action during a dream, and the compassionate care after we have woken up. The first stage is a form of proactive fortification. If you are someone who suffers from recurring nightmares, or if you simply feel a general anxiety about what the night may bring, you can work with this proactively through the practice of metta. As you lie in bed, cultivating a feeling of loving kindness for yourself and for others, you can add one more specific recipient: your own fear. You can bring to mind the feeling of the nightmare, or even a specific image that haunts you, and instead of pushing it away, you consciously radiate warmth towards it. You can use phrases like, "Whatever form my fear takes tonight, may it be met with peace, may it be held in compassion, may it be healed." You are not trying to build a wall to keep the monster out. You are turning on a light in the house before the monster even arrives. You are changing the fundamental condition of your mind from one of fearful anticipation to one of loving readiness. This act alone can profoundly alter the texture of your dreams, creating a field of safety that allows these difficult energies to arise in a less terrifying form. The second stage is the most advanced and transformative, and it is an invitation for moments when you have even a tiny flicker of awareness that you are dreaming, a state known as lucid or semi-lucid dreaming. In a typical nightmare, our only instinct is to flee. If we are being chased, we run faster. If we are being attacked, we try to fight back or scream ourselves awake. The radical practice taught in traditions like Tibetan dream yoga is to do the exact opposite of what your fear commands. It is the practice of the sacred turning. Instead of running, you stop. You plant your dream feet on the dream ground. You turn around, and you face the thing that is chasing you. You look your personal monster directly in the eye. Then, from a place of immense courage and vulnerability, you ask it a question. The most powerful and healing question is simply this: what do you want? Or, what do you need from me? You are no longer treating it as a monster to be slain, but as a messenger to be understood. The results of this courageous act as reported by practitioners for centuries, are astonishing. Very often, the monster will transform. Its terrifying face may soften into a look of sadness. It may shrink in size, or even dissolve into light. Sometimes it will speak, and its answer will be profoundly illuminating, revealing a deep truth you have been avoiding. It might say, "I need you to listen to me," or "I need you to finally grieve." In this moment, the nightmare ceases to be an attack and becomes an act of integration, of re-owning and healing a disowned part of yourself. While this lucid practice is a powerful goal, the third stage is the most essential and accessible for everyone. Every single time we are jolted awake by a nightmare, our normal reaction is to leap out of bed, turn on the television, check our phone, anything to distract ourselves from the lingering terror. The mindful alternative is to practice compassionate aftercare. As you lie in bed, your heart pounding, your body drenched in sweat, do not immediately flee the experience. These are real, physical sensations. The fear is happening now. Instead of pushing it away, turn your attention gently towards the feeling of fear in your body. Where is it located most intensely? Is it a cold knot in your stomach? A suffocating tightness in your chest? A frantic buzzing in your head? Without judgment, simply locate it. Then, you can place a hand over that part of your body, a simple gesture of comfort and presence. Breathe with the fear. Imagine your breath gently moving into and around that knot of tension, not to force it away, but simply to keep it company, to bring it warmth and space. Then, offer it your metta. You can say silently, "It's okay. I am here with you. I feel you. This fear is welcome here." May this feeling of fear be held in boundless compassion. In doing this, you are fundamentally changing your relationship to fear. You are no longer its victim. You have become its compassionate caretaker. You are treating the frightened part of yourself like a loving parent would treat a terrified child who has just woken from a nightmare. And just like a child, when the fear feels seen, held, and validated, it can finally begin to settle. There is an old Zen story that perfectly captures this principle. A master was meditating deep within a cave when a ferocious tiger appeared at the entrance. It let out a deafening roar that shook the very rocks, its eyes burning like coals in the darkness. It was coiled, ready to spring. The master did not scream, nor did he run. He did not even move. He simply opened his eyes, looked at the magnificent, terrifying beast, and with a heart full of utter calm and presence, he said, "What a powerful and magnificent roar." The tiger, whose aggression was expecting to be met with the familiar energy of fear or counter-aggression, was taken completely by surprise. Its roar was not rejected or feared, but simply acknowledged. Confused, its ferocious energy found no purchase, and it slowly, quietly, backed away and disappeared into the jungle. The nightmares, the rages, the anxieties that appear at the entrance of our mind's cave are our tigers. They lose their power when we stop running. They are transformed not by fighting them, but by meeting their terrifying roar with the calm, courageous, and compassionate presence of our awareness. Nightmares are messengers, and once the message has been received with kindness, they no longer need to scream. By turning towards the reflections in the mirror, no matter how distorted or frightening, we begin a profound process of healing. We learn that our fear is not an enemy to be destroyed, but a lost part of ourselves calling out for love. This courageous practice of facing our most difficult inner guests teaches us a universal truth that extends far beyond the realm of sleep. It teaches us that freedom is not found in building higher walls to keep out unwanted experiences, but in developing a heart big enough to welcome them all in. This realization leads us to one of the most beloved and powerful metaphors for a life of mindful practice, the understanding that our mind is a guest house, and our sacred duty is to greet every visitor, no matter their appearance, with dignity and grace. Having learned to face the terrifying tiger of the nightmare, not with aggression, but with a courageous and open heart, we arrive at a liberating realization. This practice of compassionate acceptance is not just a specialized tool for dealing with our most extreme inner experiences. It is, in fact, the master key that unlocks a new way of relating to our entire inner world, day and night. The courage we cultivate in facing our fear can be generalized into a boundless hospitality that transforms our mind from a guarded fortress into a sacred and welcoming space. This is a shift from a life of inner conflict to a life of profound, unconditional presence. And there is perhaps no more beautiful or complete map for this way of being than the one offered to us by the 13th century Persian poet and Sufi mystic Jalaluddin Rumi in his immortal poem, The Guest House. Rumi's poem begins with a simple, revolutionary declaration. This being human is a guest house, every morning a new arrival. In these few words, our entire understanding of ourselves is turned inside out. We are not the solid, fixed personality we imagine ourselves to be. We are not the master of a fortified castle who must defend its walls at all costs. We are, instead, the proprietors of a humble guest house, standing by the door each morning, waiting to see who or what will arrive. And the guests are as varied as humanity itself. A joy, a depression, a meanness, Rumi writes. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Think of your own experience as you lie in bed. One moment, a wave of peaceful contentment washes over you, a welcome guest. The next, a jolt of anxiety about work arrives, pounding on the door. A moment later, a sad memory from childhood drifts in like a quiet, sorrowful traveler. Then comes a flash of petty irritation at your partner's breathing, or a sudden, brilliant idea for a project. These are the guests. They arrive, unannounced, at all hours. Our lifelong, deeply conditioned habit is to be a very picky, very anxious host. When the guest named Joy arrives, we fling the door open wide. We offer it the best room, the finest food, and we beg it never to leave. When the guest named Sorrow comes knocking, we pretend we are not home. We bar the door, close the shutters, and hope it will eventually go away. When anger shows up, red-faced and shouting, we either try to throw it out immediately or we let it in and allow it to smash all the furniture. This constant activity of judging, choosing, rejecting, and clinging is utterly exhausting. It turns our inner life into a perpetual state of siege. We are never at peace because we are always on guard, forever trying to manage an unmanageable flow of visitors. The result is a mind in a state of constant civil war, and the primary casualty is our own serenity. Rumi's instruction is the very opposite of our instinct. It is simple, terrifying, and profoundly liberating. He says, "Welcome and entertain them all, even if they are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably." This is the heart of the practice, to welcome them all, to not discriminate. When that familiar heavy guest named Sadness appears at your door, your practice is not to fight it, but to say, with a quiet inner dignity, "Ah, Sadness, you have arrived. Welcome. Please, come in." You are not saying, "I am glad you are here." You are not saying, "I hope you stay forever." You are simply ceasing the war. You are meeting what is present with awareness and a measure of grace. This honorable treatment means you offer the guest a chair. You allow it to be there. You allow yourself to feel the physical reality of sadness in your body, the heaviness in the chest, the lump in the throat, without adding the second layer of suffering, which is the desperate attempt to make it go away. But why would we do this? Why would we welcome a crowd of sorrows that threatens to empty our house? Rumi gives us the stunning reason in the next lines. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice. Meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. This is the radical reframe. These difficult guests are not here to torment us. They have a purpose. They are agents of a deep, unseen purification. They are janitors of the soul, sent to clear out the old, accumulated dust and debris to make space for something new. That dark thought you keep pushing away might be showing you a limiting belief that needs to be released. That feeling of shame you cannot bear might be clearing out the house of your arrogance. That wave of malice or envy might be shining a light on a deep-seated feeling of lack, inviting you to cultivate gratitude. When we see this, we can almost meet them at the door laughing, not with manic glee, but with the quiet laugh of recognition. We see the game. We see that these visitors, though they may wear frightening masks, are ultimately here to help us. They are, as Rumi says, guides from beyond. This guest house model is a perfect framework for our nightly practice. Each dream that arises is a guest. When we awaken, our practice is to remember the guest that visited in the night. Perhaps it was a beautiful, joyful, dreamer-welcome guest whose presence we can savor with gratitude. Perhaps it was a confusing, fragmented, nonsensical dreamer, strange visitor in dusty clothes, speaking a language we do not understand. Our practice is not to turn it away because we do not comprehend its purpose. We simply welcome it. We note its strange attire, its unusual mannerisms, the fragmented images, the odd juxtapositions, and we offer it the hospitality of our non-judgmental attention. Perhaps, as we have seen, the guest is a terrifying nightmare. Now, armed with the wisdom of the guest house, we can understand its violent arrival in a new light. It is a guest who has been left out in the cold for so long, a guest whose previous knocks have been so completely ignored that it is now forced to break down the door just to be noticed. Its violence is a sign of its desperation. Our honorable treatment is to finally stop, turn, and listen to what it has to say. Let's make this practical. As you lie in bed and a familiar wave of anxiety arrives, this is the practice of hospitality. First, you acknowledge the arrival. Anxiety is at the door. You are not anxious. Anxiety is a visitor. Second, you open the door by feeling it in your body. Where does this guest reside? Is it a tightness in your stomach? A buzzing in your limbs? You meet it not in the realm of thought, but in the realm of direct, physical sensation. This is how you let it in. Third, you offer it the hospitality of your breath. You breathe with it, allowing your breath to create a sense of space around the physical sensation. You are giving the guest room to be, without demanding that it leave. In this simple, threefold process: acknowledge, feel, and breathe, you have transformed a battle into an act of welcome. You have treated the guest honorably, and, paradoxically, a guest that is truly welcomed often does not stay for very long. It delivers its message, feels seen and heard, and then, in its own time, it departs, leaving the house and your heart a little cleaner, a little more spacious than it was before. This practice of treating our mind as a guest house liberates us from the impossible, exhausting task of being a bouncer at the door of our own heart. It allows us to become a gracious, wise, and fearless host. Our peace no longer depends on having only pleasant guests arrive. Our peace is found in the unwavering quality of our welcome. We discover a deep and abiding stability that is not shaken by the ever-changing flow of thoughts and feelings. We understand that we are the house itself, the spacious, silent awareness in which all these guests, joyful and sorrowful, beautiful and terrifying, come and go. This is the profound peace of equanimity, and this boundless hospitality does not end when the sun rises. In fact, one of its most vital applications comes in the very first moments of the new day, as we transition from the world of dreams back to the world of waking. The art of welcoming the lingering guests of the night and the new guest of the morning itself is the final key to integrating our practice into the very fabric of our lives. Our journey through the inner world has taught us to welcome all guests, to meet both the joyful visitor and the terrifying monster with a heart of courageous and open hospitality. We have learned to prepare a sacred space for sleep, to plant intentions of peace, and to see our dreams as a luminous mirror. But the practice of this boundless hospitality does not end when the dream fades. In fact, one of its most crucial and life-altering applications occurs in the delicate, transient moments when the world of dreams dissolves and the world of waking life begins to take form. This is the sacred practice of waking up. For most of us, This daily transition is not a practice, but a trauma. It is a violent expulsion from one state of being into another, triggered by the jarring shriek of an alarm clock. Before our eyes are even fully open, we reach for our phones, and in an instant, our minds are flooded. The anxieties of the day's to-do list, the outrage from the morning's headlines, the endless scroll of social media. We go from the deep, slow rhythm of sleep to the frantic, chaotic frequency of the modern world in a matter of seconds. We do this every day, jolting our own nervous system with a kind of violence, and then we wonder why we feel anxious and fragmented. There is another way. There is a way to honor this profound transition, to treat the moment of waking not as a jarring emergency, but as a gradual and sacred unfurling, like a flower opening to the dawn. The key is to recognize the unique quality of the mind in these first few moments. Upon first waking, our consciousness is incredibly soft, tender, and malleable. The hard, analytical, and often cynical shell of our waking ego has not yet fully crystallized. The mind is like soft, damp clay, ready to be imprinted. The very first thoughts and feelings we introduce into this receptive field will set the emotional and energetic tone for the entire day. If the first impression on this soft clay is the hard stamp of anxiety, stress, and external demands, that shape will harden, and we will carry its imprint with us for hours. But if we can consciously choose to make the first impression one of peace, presence, and gratitude, we are setting a foundation of well-being that can support us through all the challenges the day may bring. This is not about adding another task to your morning. It is about reclaiming the first moments of your day as your own sacred territory. The practice can be distilled into a simple, threefold pause to be undertaken before you even move a muscle or open your eyes. It is the practice of consciously choosing your first action, your first emotion, and your first thought. The first and most fundamental is the homecoming to the breath. As awareness begins to dawn, before you even name the day or think about your schedule, let your very first conscious act be the simple recognition that you are breathing. Without changing or controlling it, just feel it. Feel the gentle weight of the blanket on your chest as it rises, and the subtle release as it falls. Feel the air, cool and fresh, entering your body, and the soft warmth as it leaves. This one, simple act is profoundly anchoring. It brings you immediately out of the disembodied world of thought and into the living reality of your body. It grounds you in the present moment, a silent declaration that says, I am here, I am alive, I have arrived. This single, mindful breath acts as a sacred buffer, preventing the mind's habit of instantly launching into its cascade of worries. Having anchored yourself in the breath, the second step is to consciously cultivate your first emotion of the day, gratitude. While still lying in the comfort of your bed, gently bring to mind something for which you are grateful. It need not be something grand or monumental. It can be the simplest of things. Gratitude for the warmth of your blankets, gratitude for the feeling of rest in your limbs, gratitude for the quiet of the morning, gratitude for the fact that your heart is beating, that your lungs are breathing, that you have been given the astonishing gift of another day of life, a gift that, in the grand scheme of things, is never guaranteed. Allow this feeling of simple appreciation to settle in your heart. This conscious shift to gratitude is a powerful antidote to the mind's default scarcity setting, which immediately scans the horizon for problems to solve and things that are lacking. By starting with gratitude, you are framing your entire day not from a place of deficit, but from a place of quiet, gentle abundance. The third and final step of this sacred pause is to consciously welcome the guests from the night. With your mind now anchored in presence and warmed by gratitude, you can turn your attention back toward the veil of sleep. Like a gracious host tidying up after the guests have departed, you can gently ask, who visited last night? What dreams came to the guest house? Again, there is no need to strain or grasp. Simply hold the question in your open awareness and see what memories or feelings surface. Perhaps a fragment of a beautiful dream appears. You can greet it with a silent smile of thanks. Perhaps the lingering feeling of an anxious dream is still present. You can meet this feeling not with aversion, but with the gentle hospitality you have learned, acknowledging it with a thought like, "Ah, this visitor of anxiety is still here. I see it. It is welcome." This practice seamlessly integrates the inner world of the night with the outer world of the day. It honors the messages and reflections from your dreams, ensuring their wisdom is not immediately lost in the rush to begin the day. You are closing the circle, weaving the threads of your sleeping and waking consciousness into a single, whole cloth. Imagine the rising of the sun. The dawn does not arrive like the flick of a light switch. It is a slow, majestic, and breathtakingly beautiful process. First, there is a faint, almost imperceptible glow on the darkest part of the horizon. Then, slowly, this light intensifies, spilling soft color spinks, oranges, purples across the sky. The darkness is not violently banished. It gracefully yields to the emerging light, and for a time they coexist in a state of stunning harmony. Our waking should be like this sunrise. It should not be a jarring alarm that rips us from the darkness, but a gentle, gradual, and beautiful unfurling of our own consciousness. This threefold sacred pause of breath, gratitude, and welcoming is our personal sunrise. It is the act of allowing our own inner light to dawn gracefully before we engage with the demands and complexities of the world. By reclaiming these first few precious moments, you are performing an act of profound sovereignty. You are making a conscious choice to begin your day from a place of centeredness, peace, and purpose, rather than from a place of reactivity and chaos. You are becoming the architect of your own morning, rather than a victim of its frantic pace. This daily commitment to mindful waking does more than just create more peaceful days. It has a cumulative effect. With each mindful morning, you are strengthening the muscle of your awareness, of your capacity for moment-to-moment presence. As this muscle becomes stronger, more toned, and more resilient through your waking hours, a remarkable possibility begins to dawn. You may find that your awareness becomes so stable, so continuous, that it no longer fully extinguishes when you cross the threshold into sleep. It can learn to persist, carrying a tiny, luminous thread of knowing into the dreamscape itself. This brings us to the precipice of one of the most fascinating and transformative practices available to us, the possibility of waking up inside our dreams and touching the very nature of reality. As we cultivate the habit of waking with mindful presence, weaving the threads of night and day into a more coherent whole, our awareness begins to gather a new kind of momentum. The practice of returning to the present moment, whether from a daydream at our desk or from a cascade of worry in our bed, strengthens a particular mental muscle. It is the muscle of recognition, the capacity to wake up from the dream of habitual thought. As this continuity of awareness becomes more stable and resilient during our waking hours, a remarkable possibility begins to emerge. It becomes possible for this luminous thread of mindfulness to stretch across the threshold of sleep, to remain unbroken even as the body rests and the conscious mind dissolves. When this happens, we may find ourselves in the midst of a dream, experiencing its vivid reality, when suddenly a flash of insight dawns with startling clarity. This is the profound moment of waking up inside the dream itself. This is the practice and the revelation of lucid awareness. To become lucid in a dream is to experience a fundamental shift in the nature of reality. One moment, you are completely immersed in the dream's narrative, accepting its strange logic without question. You are running from a faceless pursuer, flying over a city of impossible architecture, or having a conversation with a long-lost relative, and it all feels perfectly real. Then, the moment of lucidity strikes. A spark of knowing ignites in the mind, and a single, clear thought arises. This is a dream. The dream does not stop. The landscape does not vanish, but your relationship to it is irrevocably transformed. It is like being an actor in a play, so completely lost in your role that you believe you are the king you are portraying, and then suddenly remembering that you are on a stage, that there is an audience, and that the crown on your head is made of cardboard. You can continue to speak the lines and play the part, but you are no longer a prisoner of the illusion. You are aware of the greater reality in which the play is unfolding. For many in the modern world, lucid dreaming is pursued as a form of ultimate entertainment, a virtual reality simulator where one can indulge in fantasies of flying, wish fulfillment, and adventure. While these experiences can certainly occur, the Buddhist approach to lucid awareness has an entirely different and far deeper purpose. The goal is not control, but insight. The aim is not to manipulate the dreamscape for our own pleasure, but to use this precious state of heightened awareness as an unparalleled laboratory for investigating the nature of the mind and reality itself. The primary practice, upon becoming lucid, is not to immediately try to change things, but to simply remain present with the dream as it is, and to observe it with this newfound clarity. The guiding question is not, "What can I do here?" but rather, "What can be understood here?" This turns the dream from a playground into a classroom of the highest order. The first and most immediate lesson we learn is a visceral, liberating insight into the nature of fear. Imagine that you become lucid in the middle of a terrifying nightmare. A menacing monster is chasing you, and your dream body is filled with primal terror. The moment you realize, this is a dream, what happens to the fear? It vanishes instantly. The heart may still be pounding from the dream's momentum, but the psychological terror dissolves. Why? Because you know, with unshakable certainty, that the monster is not real in the way you thought it was. It cannot harm you. It is an appearance, a projection of mind, as ephemeral as smoke. This is not an intellectual understanding. It is a direct, embodied experience. You have just learned, on a cellular level, that even the most terrifying phenomena are empty of any inherent power to cause you suffering once their illusory nature is recognized. And this lesson does not stop with the monster. As you look around the lucid dreamscape, you realize that the beautiful palace in the distance is also a projection. The ground beneath your feet is a projection. Your own dream body is a projection. All of it is the magical, luminous, and insubstantial display of your own consciousness. This is the bridge. This is where the practice of lucid dreaming becomes a direct path to freedom in our waking lives. The experience of the dream is a perfect analogy for our experience of reality. In our waking life, we are completely convinced by the solidity and importance of our problems. A wave of anger arises, and it feels overwhelmingly real and justified. A deep-seated fear about our future takes hold, and it feels like an undeniable truth about the world. We are trapped within the narrative of our own suffering, believing it to be absolutely real. But the lucid dream provides us with an experiential reference point, a memory of a time when something felt completely, terrifyingly real, and then was revealed to be an illusion. It plants a seed of sacred doubt in the heart of our waking certainty. After having seen the dream monster for the illusion it is, we can begin to ask a revolutionary question when faced with a powerful wave of waking anxiety. This feeling feels absolutely real, just like that monster did. But what if it, too, is an appearance in consciousness rather than a solid truth? What if it, too, is a projection of mind, empty of inherent reality? We may not be able to dissolve our waking anxiety as instantly as we did our dream fear, but the question itself creates a space. It loosens the grip of the emotion. It introduces a glimmer of lucidity into our waking dream, transforming us from prisoners of our feelings into mindful observers of them. There is a timeless story from the Taoist sage Zhuangzi that perfectly captures the philosophical heart of this experience. One night, Zhuangzi dreamt he was a butterfly, a happy butterfly, fluttering from flower to flower, with no awareness whatsoever of being Zhuangzi. He was completely and utterly the butterfly. Then he awoke, and there he was, solidly and certainly Zhuangzi again. But he was left with a great and profound question. He asked, was I Zhuangzi dreaming that I was a butterfly, or am I now a butterfly dreaming that I am Zhuangzi? This beautiful paradox is not just a clever intellectual game, it is the very essence of the insight that lucid awareness provides. It dissolves the hard, certain boundary we draw between dream and reality, suggesting that both are states of consciousness, both are experienced through the filter of our minds, and both may be more dreamlike than we imagine. How do we cultivate this extraordinary state of awareness? It is not, as some believe, primarily about clever nighttime techniques. The foundation for lucid dreaming is built during the day. The more mindful and present we are in our waking life, the more likely this quality of presence will carry over into our sleep. The primary practice is to consistently wake up from the autopilot of our daily thoughts. Every time you notice you are lost in thought and you consciously bring your attention back to your breath or your bodily sensations, you are strengthening your lucidity muscle. You can support this with a simple, playful, daytime practice. A few times a day, stop what you are doing and genuinely ask yourself the question, am I dreaming right now? As you ask the question, perform a reality test. A classic test is to look at your hands, look away, and then look back. In a dream, the hands will often appear distorted with the wrong number of fingers, or they will shift their appearance. Another test is to try to read a line of text, look away, and then read it again. In a dream, the text will almost always have changed. By seeding your waking day with this habit of questioning reality, you create a new mental reflex, a habit that has a very real chance of firing spontaneously while you are in the midst of a dream, triggering the precious moment of lucidity. Lucid awareness, then, is far more than an interesting psychic phenomenon. It is a direct, experiential glimpse into the profound teachings of emptiness and illusion. It is a peek behind the curtain of consensus reality, revealing that the world we experience is not a fixed, objective thing, but a vibrant, magical, and ever-changing display woven from the very fabric of our own mind. This powerful insight does not magically solve our problems, but it radically alters our relationship to them. It reveals that we are not victims of a solid, unforgiving world, but participants in a vast, mysterious dream. And having had this glimpse, having tasted this freedom, we can now use the laboratory of our dreamscape to explore the fundamental laws that govern this dream, the great laws of impermanence and the selfless nature of our own being. Having awakened to the dreamlike nature of our own experience through the portal of lucid awareness, we stand within a living laboratory, a space perfectly designed for the deepest kind of seeing. We are no longer prisoners of the narrative. We are conscious observers. The first, most immediate, and unavoidable truth that this laboratory reveals to us is the profound and universal law of change. In our waking life, we expend enormous energy maintaining an illusion of stability. We build solid houses, seek secure careers, and form relationships that we hope will last forever, all in an effort to create a sense of solid ground beneath our feet. But the dream world offers no such comfort. It is a world of pure, untamed flux, a place where the fundamental truth of reality is ceaseless, radical impermanent size, on full, vibrant display. The dreamscape is a masterclass in the great Buddhist teaching of anicca, or impermanence. When we are lucid within a dream, we have a front row seat to this cosmic law. The experience is not subtle, it is breathtakingly obvious. You may find yourself standing in a breathtakingly beautiful cathedral, its stone walls seemingly ancient and enduring. Yet, as you watch, a crack may appear, a single fissure that spiders across the ceiling, and in the space of a heartbeat, the entire magnificent structure crumbles into a pile of silent dust. You might be engaged in a heartfelt conversation with a loved one, feeling the warmth of their presence, only to have their face subtly morph, their features shifting and melting into those of a complete stranger, or even dissolving into thin air. A sun-drenched, peaceful meadow can transform without warning into a dark, stormy seascape. The very ground you are standing on can give way, plunging you into an endless sky. This is not a flaw in the dream's programming. This is its most essential feature. The dream world is a hyper-accelerated, high-fidelity demonstration of the fact that nothing, absolutely nothing, has a fixed or permanent nature. Everything is in a state of arising, changing, and passing away. The practice, when we find ourselves in this lucid space, is not to fight this flow. Our waking life instinct would be to try and stabilize the dream, to hold on to the beautiful cathedral, to cling to the face of our loved one. But this is a perfect, safe environment to practice the art of letting go. The instruction is simply to watch. With a mind of calm and curious observation, we witness the arising and passing of all phenomena. We watch the palace rise and we watch it fall, without attachment to its beauty and without aversion to its ruin. We feel the joy of flying, and we notice when that sensation dissolves, without desperately trying to grasp it back. We are training our minds in the profound wisdom of non-clinging. In the dream world, any attempt to grasp onto a form, a feeling, or a situation is revealed as utterly futile. The dream demonstrates with perfect clarity that our suffering is not caused by the fact that things change, but by our desperate resistance to that change. It is our clinging to the wave that causes us to be pulled under, not the wave itself. This direct, visceral lesson learned in the safety of the dreamscape is a powerful medicine for our waking life. We carry the memory of that blatant impermanence back with us into a world that seems, on the surface, to be so solid and stable. We look at our prized possessions, our new car, our beautiful home, and the lucid dream whispers a secret to us. This, too, is a temporary form. This, too, will change and pass away. We look at our own bodies in the mirror, so familiar and seemingly constant, and the dream reminds us, this, too, is a flowing process, not a solid entity. It is aging, changing, and moving towards its own dissolution in every moment. We experience a moment of intense joy or a moment of profound despair, and the dream's wisdom arises. This feeling, however powerful, is a weather pattern, not the sky. It has arisen, and it will pass. The dream teaches us to hold our waking life with a lighter touch. It does not mean we do not care, or that we become detached and nihilistic. On the contrary, it allows us to engage with life more fully and fearlessly. There is a beautiful and simple analogy for this way of being, that of a child building a sandcastle on the beach. The child pours her entire heart and creative soul into the project. She gathers the wet sand, carefully sculpting towers and walls, decorating them with shells and seaweed. For that period of time, the creation of the sandcastle is her entire world, and she experiences pure, unadulterated joy in the act of creation. But all the while, she is perfectly aware that the tide is coming in. She knows that eventually, a wave will come and wash her beautiful creation back into the featureless sand. When that moment comes, does she scream in despair? Does she rail against the injustice of the ocean? Number, she may even laugh with delight as the wave comes, because she understood the impermanent nature of her sandcastle from the very beginning. Its beauty was not in its permanence, but in the joy of its creation. The wisdom gained from observing impermanence in our dreams allows us to approach our waking life like that child. We can build our careers, nurture our relationships, and create beautiful things in the world with full engagement and love, but without the naive, background assumption that they are permanent. We learn to love the sandcastle while knowing that the tide is always coming in. This understanding frees us from the devastating suffering of loss and disappointment, allowing us to find peace and joy within the flow of life itself. This practice can be integrated into our lives even without achieving full lucidity. Upon waking from any dream, we can add a simple inquiry to our morning reflection. Alongside asking about the feeling tone, we can ask, what was impermanent in that dream? What changed? What came into being? And what passed away? By consciously looking for the evidence of change, we train our minds to recognize this universal law. We can then carry this inquiry into our day. Notice the steam rising from your morning coffee and how it vanishes into the air. Listen to the sound of a passing car, noticing how it grows and then fades into silence. Observe a thought or an emotion arising in your mind, and then watch as it dissolves and is replaced by another. Our daily life is a tapestry woven from countless tiny instances of impermanence. By learning to see them, we reinforce the profound lesson that the dream world teaches us in such a dramatic fashion. By embracing the truth of anicca, we begin to dismantle the very foundation of our anxiety. Anxiety is almost always rooted in a fear of future change, fear of losing what we have, or a fear of getting what we don't want. But when we understand that change is not a flaw in the system but the very nature of the system itself, the fear loses its grip. We learn to trust the flow, we develop a deep-seated resilience, an equanimity that is not dependent on circumstances remaining stable. We learn to dance with the ceaseless rhythm of existence, rather than trying to stand still on a moving floor. Having witnessed the relentless change in the scenery of the dream, having seen that all forms are like ephemeral sandcastles, a new question naturally arises. If the entire world of the dream is in flux, what about the character at its center? What about the me who is witnessing all this change? Is this dream self solid and permanent, or is it, too, just another fleeting appearance? This inquiry leads us directly into the heart of the next great discovery, the empty, selfless nature of the dreamer himself. Having watched the ephemeral dream world rise and fall like sandcastles before the tide, we have learned a profound lesson in the universal law of impermanence. The solid ground we seek is nowhere to be found, for all of creation is a river of ceaseless change. This insight, however, naturally leads to a deeper, more personal, and even more unsettling question. We have been observing the scenery of the dream theater, but what about the actor at the center of the stage? What about the I, who witnesses the cathedrals crumble, who feels the joy of flight, who runs from the terrifying monster? Is this self, this protagonist of our nightly drama, the one solid and enduring thing in a world of flux? Or is it too just another fleeting special effect, another phantasm projected onto the empty stage of the mind? This inquiry leads us into the very heart of Buddhist wisdom, to the discovery of anatta, or no self, a truth that, once glimpsed, has the power to unravel the very root of our suffering. Our waking sense of self feels incredibly solid. It is a continuous narrative, a story of me that starts in childhood and extends into a projected future. We feel like a singular, independent entity residing somewhere behind our eyes, looking out at the world. But the dream world, once again, serves as a revolutionary laboratory that destabilizes this certainty. Pay close attention to the nature of you in your dreams. Who are you, really? In one dream, you may be yourself, the age you are now, with all your familiar thoughts and feelings. But in the next, you might be a small child, re-experiencing the world from a place of innocence or vulnerability. In another, you might be a detached observer, watching the events unfold from a third-person perspective, as if watching a movie where you happen to be the main character. Sometimes, you may even find that you are not present at all, and the dream is just a series of scenes and images without a central protagonist. The dream self is a chameleon, a shapeshifter. It has no fixed identity. This simple observation is a powerful clue. It suggests that our seemingly solid sense of self is not a permanent fixture, but a flexible, context-dependent construct of the mind. The exploration deepens when we ask the most fundamental question of the dreamscape: who is the author of this play? When a terrifying monster appears and chases you down a dark corridor, where does this monster come from? It is not an external entity, it is a projection of your own mind. When a beautiful, serene landscape unfolds before you, who is the artist? It is your own mind. And now for the crucial step. When the character of you appears in the dream, feeling fear of the monster or joy at the landscape, who is creating this? You. It is, of course, the very same source, your own mind. This is a moment of stunning revelation. The dreamer, the dream, and the dream world are not three separate things. They are a single, unified, and indivisible process. The consciousness that is projecting the monster is the same consciousness that is projecting the me who is running from it. The distinction between subject and object, the perceiver and the perceived, completely collapses. There is no one behind the scenes, pulling the strings. There is only the play itself, a seamless, self-luminous display of awareness. This insight helps us to understand the other characters that populate our dreams. We dream of loved ones, of colleagues, of strangers on the street. They appear to us as separate beings, with their own intentions and personalities. We might have a deeply meaningful conversation with a dream character, or a bitter argument. But where do they come from? They, too, are woven from the fabric of our own consciousness. The character of your boss who criticizes you in a dream is a projection of your own inner critic, your own feelings of inadequacy. The wise old sage who offers you profound advice is the voice of your own deep, intuitive wisdom, which you may not have access to in your waking state. The passionate lover you meet is a manifestation of your own longing and your own capacity for love. The dream reveals that the hard line we draw between self and other is fundamentally illusory. The entire cast of characters in our nightly drama is just different facets of our own vast and complex psyche, playing out their stories on the stage. There is a classic Indian parable that perfectly illustrates this discovery. It is the story of the 6 blind men and the elephant. These 6 men, who had never encountered an elephant before, were brought to one and asked to describe it. The first man, whose hands fell upon the elephant's broad, sturdy side, declared, "An elephant is very much like a wall." The second, who felt the smooth, sharp tusk, said, "No, an elephant is like a spear." The third, who happened to take the squirming trunk in his hands, announced, "It is clear that an elephant is like a snake." The fourth man, who reached out and touched one of the great knees, insisted it was like a tree. The fifth, who felt the swaying ear, was convinced it was like a fan. And the sixth, who grabbed hold of the swinging tail, stated with certainty that an elephant was exactly like a rope. A sighted man who was watching listened as the blind men fell into a loud and angry argument, each one absolutely certain that their limited, partial experience represented the whole truth and that all the others were fools or liars. Our ordinary, waking sense of self is like one of those blind men. It grasps onto one tiny facet of reality, this body, these thoughts, these feelings, and proclaims with absolute certainty, "This is me. This is who I am." The dream state is the gift of becoming the sighted man. It is a space where we can realize that we are not just the man holding the tail. We are also the man holding the tusk, the trunk, the ear, the leg, and the side. In fact, we are the entire elephant, the whole, interconnected field of experience. This realization is not just a fascinating philosophical point, it is the key to unlocking profound compassion and freedom in our waking life. When we are caught in a conflict with another person, our normal state is one of absolute certainty, like one of the blind men. We are convinced of the rightness of our own position and the wrongness of theirs. But the wisdom of the dream allows us to pause and ask, how much of the monster I see in this person is a projection of my own fear? How much of the idiot I see is a projection of my own insecurity? It does not mean we absolve others of their responsibilities, but it does mean we begin to see our own mind's contribution to the conflict. We start to see that the other person is not a separate, alien entity, but another complex field of consciousness whose suffering and confusion is not so different from our own. The hard, defensive wall between me and you begins to soften, replaced by a sense of shared being. We stop seeing life as a struggle of me against the world and begin to see it as a single, unfolding dance. The teaching of anatta, or no self, can at first sound terrifying. It can feel like a spiritual death sentence, the annihilation of everything we are. But this is a misunderstanding. The discovery of no self is not the discovery of nothingness. It is the discovery of everything. You are not being asked to believe that you don't exist. You are being invited to discover that you do not exist as the small, isolated, and vulnerable character you have always imagined yourself to be. You are being liberated from the cramped prison cell of the ego into the boundless, open sky of interconnected awareness. You are not just the single, anxious wave on the surface of the ocean. You are the entire, vast, deep, and powerful ocean itself. The dream theater, with its empty stage, reveals that there is no separate actor. There is only the luminous, creative, and boundless play of consciousness itself. And with this liberating insight, we are finally ready to step off the stage, to bring the wisdom gleaned from the night's sacred theater into the full light of our waking day, not just as a beautiful theory, but as a living, breathing reality. We have undertaken a remarkable pilgrimage into the vast, mysterious continent of the night. We have journeyed through the transitional bardo states, learned to see our dreams as a luminous mirror, and cultivated the courage to face our deepest fears with an open heart. We have come to understand the great laws of impermanence and the selfless nature of our own being, all within the safe and magical laboratory of our sleep. But like any true pilgrimage, its ultimate value is not found in the exotic landscapes we have visited, but in the way we are changed upon returning home. The goal of this entire journey has never been merely to have more interesting dreams or to achieve a perfect night's sleep. The ultimate purpose is liberation, a freedom that is not confined to the pillow, but one that permeates every moment of our waking lives. This is the crucial step of integration, of carrying the treasures of the night's wisdom back into the bright, challenging, and often chaotic light of day. First, we must redefine what we mean by emotional freedom. In our culture, we often imagine freedom as a kind of invulnerable, blissful state, a permanent vacation from all difficult feelings. We dream of a life where we are never again touched by anger, sadness, or fear. But this is a fantasy of dissociation, not of liberation. To be fully human is to experience the entire, rich, and sometimes painful spectrum of emotion. True freedom is not the absence of these feelings, but the radical change in our relationship to them. It is the freedom from being enslaved by them. Imagine being caught in a fierce rainstorm. One experience is to be out in the open, drenched, shivering, and at the mercy of the wind. Another experience is to be inside a warm, spacious house, watching the very same storm through a clear window. You can still see the lightning and hear the thunder. You can appreciate the power and beauty of the storm, but you are not defined by it. You are safe in the sanctuary of your own awareness. The nightly practices we have explored are the process of building this inner sanctuary. You are not trying to stop the weather of life. You are building a home within yourself that can hold any storm. The most practical and immediate way this freedom manifests is through the cultivation of what we can call the sacred pause. For most of us, life is lived as a series of unconscious, instantaneous reactions. A driver cuts us off in traffic, stimulus, and instantly there is a surge of anger and a curse on our lips, reaction. A critical email arrives, stimulus, and immediately there is a knot of anxiety in our stomach, reaction. We are like puppets, and our emotions and external events are pulling the strings. The combined effect of our nightly practices, of watching thoughts arise and pass, of welcoming emotions as guests, of seeing the world as a dream is, that it begins to insert a tiny, precious gap between stimulus and reaction. A space opens up. In this space, this sacred pause, we have a choice. We are no longer compelled to follow the well-worn path of our habitual conditioning. We can see the anger begin to arise, but we don't have to become the anger. We can feel the anxiety start to form, but we don't have to be hijacked by it. This gap is the space where our freedom is born. Let's see how this works in the situations of our daily lives. Imagine you are in a meeting, and your boss publicly criticizes a piece of your work. The old, reactive pattern would be an immediate hot flush of shame, a defensive tightening in your chest, and a mental script of anger and resentment that you replay for the rest of the day, poisoning your peace. But with this newfound space, the experience is different. The stimulus is the same. The critical words are spoken. The initial feeling still arises. The guest of shame or anger arrives at the door. But now, because you have practiced welcoming all guests, you don't slam the door or start a fight. You notice it. Ah, this is the feeling of shame. You breathe. In that sacred pause, you can see the feeling for what it is. An uncomfortable but transient energy, a visitor, not the truth of who you are. From this place of clarity, you can choose your response. You might simply say, "Thank you for the feedback. I will look into that." You have not been hijacked. The puppet strings have been cut. You are free. Consider another common scenario. You are stuck in traffic, late for an important appointment. The old pattern is one of escalating frustration. The mind races, the body tenses. You grip the steering wheel, and you silently curse every other driver. You are suffering intensely, and yet the traffic is not moving any faster. Your suffering is a second, useless layer added on top of an already difficult situation. The new response, born from your nightly explorations of impermanence, is to notice the feeling of frustration arise. You recognize its flavor. You remember the dream where the landscape kept shifting and you had no control. You realize that this traffic jam is another expression of reality that you cannot control. You breathe. You feel the tension in your shoulders and consciously soften it. You are still late. The external reality has not changed, but you have chosen not to pollute your own inner world with a storm of useless suffering. You have found a measure of peace right in the middle of the traffic jam. This is freedom. This profound shift in perspective is beautifully captured in a classic Taoist story about the empty boat. A man was taking a break from his work, enjoying a quiet moment, rowing his small boat on a misty lake. As he rested, another boat came out of the mist and crashed forcefully into the side of his. The man was instantly filled with rage. He stood up and began screaming at the person in the other boat, calling him an incompetent fool for his carelessness. But as he looked more closely, his voice trailed off into silence. He realized the other boat was empty. It had simply come untied from the shore and been carried by the current. In that moment, all of his anger vanished. How can you be angry at an empty boat? There was no one to blame. It was just an event. The story concludes with a powerful insight. Most of the boats that bump into us in the river of life are empty. The person who insults you is being driven by their own unconscious currents of pain, fear, and conditioning. The colleague who undermines you is adrift in their own insecurity. Their boat is empty of a conscious, malicious pilot who is intentionally trying to harm you. Your nightly practice of seeing dream characters as projections of a greater consciousness helps you to see the empty boat in everyone you meet. It dissolves blame and fosters a deep and radical compassion for yourself and for others. The true harvest of our pilgrimage into the night is a transformed day. The peace we cultivate in the darkness is not meant to stay there. It is meant to be carried out into the world as a source of strength, clarity, and kindness. We begin to live with more space around our experiences. We are less like a reactive nerve ending and more like the spacious, open sky. We are no longer just dreaming at night. We are finally beginning to wake up during the day. And as we stabilize this profound emotional and psychological freedom, we may feel a calling to deepen our practice even further, to explore the more subtle layers of our being that support this integration. We can learn to work not just with our thoughts and emotions, but with the very life force that animates us, the subtle energies of the body. This brings us to the next fascinating dimension of our inner world, the subtle body and the flow of our vital breath. As we weave the insights of the night into the fabric of our day, we begin to experience a new kind of freedoma spaciousness around our emotions, a compassionate distance from our reactivity. We have, up to this point, worked primarily with the powerful tools of the mind: awareness, intention, and perspective. We have learned to observe our thoughts, befriend our emotions, and see through the illusions of our dreams. Now, our journey invites us to go a level deeper, to explore a more subtle and foundational dimension of our being. The great wisdom traditions of the East teach that we are more than just a physical body and a thinking mind. Animating and interpenetrating this physical form is a vibrant, flowing web of life force energy. This is our subtle body, our energy body, and its state of harmony or disharmony has a profound impact on the quality of our rest and the depth of our peace. This may sound like a strange or esoteric concept, but it points to a reality we already know intimately. We speak its language every day when we say, "I feel full of energy," or "I'm feeling completely drained." This energy is not just a metaphor for our mood. It is a tangible, felt sense of vitality, a life force that the yogic traditions call prana and the Taoist traditions call qi. This vital energy does not flow randomly. It moves through the subtle body in a complex network of channels, much like blood flows through our veins, or electricity moves through the wiring of a house. When we are healthy, relaxed, and joyful, this energy flows smoothly and freely, nourishing every part of our being. But when we experience stress, anger, fear, or trauma, this flow can become blocked, stagnant, or chaotic. These blockages are the energetic knots and tangles that underlie much of our physical and psychological dis-ease. A day filled with tension and conflict doesn't just leave a residue in our thoughts. It creates real tangles in our subtle energetic anatomy. And it is this energetic turbulence that often prevents us from sinking into deep, restorative sleep. How then can we work with something so subtle and unseen? The master key, once again, is the breath. The connection between breath and life force is ancient and profound. In Sanskrit, the word prana can mean both breath and life force energy. This is no accident. The most direct and constant way we absorb this vital energy from the universe is through the simple act of breathing. But the breath is more than just an intake valve for prana. It is also the primary handle, the main control lever we have for regulating its flow throughout our system. We have already seen how our emotional state dramatically alters our breathing patterns. A flash of anxiety leads to short, shallow, chaotic breathing, which is the signature of a chaotic and erratic energy flow. A moment of peace brings a slow, deep, regular breath, which corresponds to a smooth and harmonious energy flow. By consciously choosing to work with our breath, we are no longer just calming our mind. We are directly influencing our vital energy. We are becoming conscious gardeners of our own vitality, untangling the knots of stress and smoothing out the turbulent currents of our life force. There is a beautiful story from the life of the Buddha that perfectly illustrates the principle of this subtle tuning. A monk named Sona had been practicing meditation with extreme, unrelenting effort. He was so determined that he had pushed himself to the point of exhaustion and despair, and was on the verge of giving up the practice altogether. The Buddha, knowing his state of mind, went to him and asked, "Sona, I have heard that before you became a monk, you were a skilled musician, a master of the lute. Is this true?" Sona confirmed that it was. The Buddha then asked, "Tell me, Sona, if the strings of your lute are wound too tightly, will it produce a beautiful and harmonious sound?" "No, Lord," Sona replied. "It will sound harsh and sharp." The Buddha then asked, "And if the strings are left too loose?" "Then, Lord, it will produce a dull and muffled sound, or no sound at all." "But," the Buddha continued, "if the strings are tuned just right, not too tight and not too loose, with an even and balanced tension, will it not then produce a beautiful, resonant, and melodious sound?" Sona had to agree that it would. The Buddha then concluded, "So it is, Sona, with the spiritual path. Too much tension leads to restlessness, and too much slackness leads to lethargy. The path is found in the middle, in the tuning of one's energy to a state of balanced harmony. Our subtle body is this lute, and our breath is the key we use to tune its string. Before sleep, our goal is to adjust the strings from the high-tension state of daily stress or the slack state of exhaustion into that perfect, resonant balance that is ideal for deep and peaceful rest. One of the most ancient, safe, and powerful techniques for achieving this energetic harmony is a breathing practice known as Nadi Shodhana, which translates as channel purification. The yogic sciences teach that there are two primary energy channels that run alongside the spine. The left channel, known as Ida, is associated with the left nostril and governs the cooling, receptive, and feminine energies of our system. The right channel, Pingala, is associated with the right nostril and governs the heating, active, and masculine energies. Throughout the day, our breathing is often dominant in one nostril or the other. Nadi Shodhana is a simple practice of alternate nostril breathing that systematically balances the flow of prana between these two channels, which in turn harmonizes the entire nervous system and brings the mind to a state of profound calm. The practice is simple to perform as you sit comfortably in bed. You can bring your right hand up towards your face, folding your index and middle fingers down so they rest at the base of your thumb. You will use your thumb to gently close your right nostril and your ring finger to gently close your left. To begin, close your right nostril with your thumb and exhale completely, slowly, and silently through your left nostril. Then inhale slowly and deeply through that same left nostril. At the top of the inhalation, close the left nostril with your ring finger. Release the pressure from your thumb and exhale completely through the right nostril. Now, inhale slowly and deeply through that same right nostril. At the top of the breath, close the right nostril with your thumb once more. Release your ring finger and exhale completely through the left nostril. This completes one full, beautiful round. You can continue in this peaceful rhythm for 5, 10, or even more rounds, allowing your breath to be as slow, smooth, and silent as possible, with no strain or force. By engaging in a practice like this before sleep, we are moving beyond the realm of psychology and into the realm of subtle energetics. We are no longer just trying to quiet our thoughts. We are actively and lovingly tuning the very instrument of our being. We are untangling the energetic knots of the day, balancing the solar and lunar aspects of our nature, and creating a state of deep cellular coherence that is the perfect foundation for profound rest and healing. This recognition of ourselves as vibrational beings, as instruments that can be tuned to the frequency of peace, opens the door to another ancient and powerful method of practice. If the breath is the most subtle way we can influence our inner vibration, then the most direct and resonant way is through the intentional use of sound itself. This leads us to our next exploration, the transformative power of mantra and the deep wisdom found in the sound of silence. Having learned to tune the subtle instrument of our being with the gentle rhythm of the breath, we can now explore another, perhaps even more ancient and direct, method of cultivating inner harmony. This is the path of sound. We live our lives immersed in a cacophony of noise. The external world bombards us with the sounds of traffic, of media, of conversation. But even more relentlessly, our inner world assails us with the ceaseless noise of our own thoughts, the internal chatter of planning, worrying, judging, and remembering. We are so accustomed to this inner and outer noise that silence can feel uncomfortable, even frightening. Yet, the great wisdom traditions teach that we can consciously use sound not as another distraction, but as a sacred tool to purify the mind, harmonize the body, and ultimately to lead us into the profound, healing stillness that lies beyond all noise. This is the practice of working with sound to discover the sound of silence. The power of this practice rests on a fundamental principle of the universe, the principle of resonance. Modern physics affirms what ancient mystics knew intuitively. Everything, at its most basic level, is vibration. The chair you are sitting on, the light in your room, your own body, and even your thoughts are all patterns of energy vibrating at different frequencies. When you are feeling anxious, your entire mind-body system is vibrating at a frantic, chaotic frequency. When you are at peace, your system is vibrating at a slow, coherent, and harmonious frequency. The principle of resonance states that a strong, stable vibration can influence a weaker, more unstable vibration and cause it to attune to its own frequency. Think of two guitars sitting in a room. If you pluck the E string on one guitar and you look closely at the other, you will see its E string begin to vibrate in sympathy. It has been brought into resonance. In the same way, when our own being is vibrating with the chaotic energy of stress, we can intentionally introduce a calm, stable, and powerful vibration like a sacred sound or mantra, and our own system will naturally begin to attune itself to that more peaceful frequency. We are not fighting our anxiety, we are gently, lovingly coaxing it into a new, more harmonious rhythm. The most time-honored tool for this practice is the mantra. The Sanskrit word mantra can be broken down into man, meaning mind, and tra, meaning tool or instrument. A mantra is, quite literally, a tool for the mind. It is a sound, a word, or a phrase that is repeated with focused attention. Its function is beautifully simple. The thinking mind, the monkey mind, loves to be busy. Its nature is to jump from one thought to another without rest. Forcing it to be silent is nearly impossible and usually creates more tension. A mantra gives the restless mind a single, wholesome, and repetitive task. It is like giving the monkey a single, delicious banana to hold on to. By focusing on repeating the mantra, the mind is occupied. It is no longer free to wander into its usual thickets of worry, planning, or resentment. The mantra acts as a sacred raft, allowing us to float across the turbulent waters of our own mental chatter and arrive safely on the shore of deep stillness. While there are countless mantras from many traditions, we can begin with the most universal and primordial of all, the sound Om or Om. This sound is said to be the resonance of the universe itself, the background hum of creation. It is composed of 3 distinct sounds, followed by silence. The A sound, pronounced Ah, resonates in the belly and chest, representing the creative force, the beginning of all things. The U sound, Oo, resonates in the throat and palate, representing the sustaining force that maintains the universe. The M sound resonates in the head, representing the dissolving force, the end of a cycle. And following the M is the most important part, the silence. This silence represents the ultimate reality, the boundless awareness from which all sound arises and into which it returns. To practice with Om before sleep, you can lie comfortably and, either aloud or silently, begin to chant the sound, feeling the vibration move through your body. Feel the A in your solar plexus, the U moving up through your chest, and the M humming gently in your head. Then, rest in the moment of silence that follows before beginning again. If a Sanskrit mantra feels foreign, you can achieve a similar effect with a simple, resonant word or phrase in your own language. You might silently repeat the word peace or calm, or a simple affirmation like I am letting go. The key is not the word itself, but the act of gently focusing the mind on a single, peaceful vibration. This practice of using a struck sound that is intentionally created is the first step. Its purpose is to lead us to a deeper, more subtle experience, the experience of the unstruck sound, or what is sometimes called the sound of silence. This is not merely the absence of external noise. It is a subtle, internal vibration that is always present, but is usually drowned out by the clamor of our senses and our thoughts. After you have spent some time repeating your chosen mantra, allow the practice to dissolve. Let the mantra go and simply rest. Be still and listen. At first, you will hear the external sounds of your environment. Listen to them without judgment. Then, turn your awareness inward. Listen to the silence between the sounds. And then, listen even more deeply. Listen to what is behind the silence. Many people begin to perceive a subtle, high-pitched inner sound, a faint ringing or humming. It is not a sign of a hearing problem. It is the sound of your own nervous system, the sound of consciousness itself. There is no need to analyze it or even name it. The practice is simply to rest your awareness in it, to let it be your anchor. It is a profoundly calming and centering experience, a direct connection to the vibrational essence of your own being. This practice of deep listening is beautifully embodied in the figure of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion, who is known in East Asia as Kuan Yin or Kannon. The name Avalokiteshvara means the one who hears the cries of the world. In order to hear the suffering of all beings, one must first cultivate the capacity to listen with infinite depth and sensitivity. This is the practice of a bodhisattva. Our practice with sound and silence is a way of developing this same extraordinary capacity. We first learn to listen to a single, chosen sound, the mantra, cutting through the noise of our own mind. Then, we learn to listen to the spaces between the sounds, to the silence that holds them. And finally, we learn to listen to the most subtle sound of all, the unstruck sound of our own inner being. From this place of deep, silent listening, a natural and effortless compassion arises. We feel compassion for our own restless, noisy mind, and by extension, we feel compassion for the suffering of all beings who are caught in the same inner turmoil. The journey of sound, then, is a journey home. It leads us from the chaotic noise of the outer world through the purifying and focusing vibration of a sacred mantra, and finally, into the deep, restorative peace of our own inner silence. We learn to rest in the fundamental vibration of our own being, a place of profound stillness that is always available, always present, beneath the surface of our thoughts. Having now gathered all these powerful tools for navigating our inner world, the tools of the mindful intellect, the compassionate heart, and the resonant energy body, we are fully equipped for our journey. A final, clarifying question naturally arises. What is the ultimate purpose of all this? Is the goal simply to feel better, to sleep more soundly, to be a little calmer? Or do all these practices point towards a far grander, more ultimate destination? This question invites us to lift our gaze from the path itself and look towards the distant mountain peak it has been leading us to all along, the ultimate goal of liberation. We have journeyed far and deep into the quiet landscapes of the night, gathering a collection of precious tools for our inner life. We have learned to calm the mind with the breath, to open the heart with loving kindness, to see our dreams as a mirror, and to tune our very being with the subtle power of sound. The immediate fruits of these practices are undeniable: a greater sense of peace, a reduction in anxiety, more restorative sleep, and a more spacious, compassionate relationship with our own minds. These are wonderful, life-affirming benefits, and if this was all the path had to offer, it would already be a pursuit of immense value. But the ancient wisdom that underlies these practices invites us to lift our gaze much higher. It suggests that these immediate comforts, as welcome as they are merely the fragrant flowers growing beside a path that leads to a far more breathtaking destination. They are the pleasant resting stops on a pilgrimage whose ultimate goal is not just a good night's sleep, but the complete and utter liberation of the heart. It is a subtle but crucial distinction to understand. It is very easy to become attached to the pleasant states that our practice can generate. We can begin to meditate in order to feel calm, or to practice dream yoga in order to have exciting lucid dreams. In these cases, the practice becomes another tool for the ego, another strategy for acquiring pleasant experiences and avoiding unpleasant ones. This is still a form of grasping, a subtle attachment that keeps us bound to the wheel of hope and fear. The Buddhist path points to a freedom that transcends even the need for pleasant states. The calm mind is not the goal itself. Rather, the calm mind is the stable platform from which we can see the true nature of reality with unshakable clarity. The peace we cultivate is not a destination. It is the clean and quiet laboratory in which the great experiment of liberation can be conducted. Think of a mountain climber. On her ascent, she may pass through beautiful meadows filled with wildflowers and stop at scenic overlooks with stunning views. She enjoys these resting places. She draws strength and inspiration from them, but she never mistakes them for the summit. The practices we have learned are the meadows and the overlooks. They provide essential rest and perspective, but the summit, the ultimate goal, remains ahead. This ultimate destination is known in the Buddhist tradition as nirvana. It is a word that is often misunderstood in the West, frequently mistaken for a kind of blissful annihilation or a heavenly paradise one goes to after death. Its true meaning is far more profound and immediate. The literal translation of nirvana is to extinguish or to blow out. The question then is, what is it that is extinguished? It is not our life, our personality, or our awareness. What is extinguished are the three fires that fuel all our suffering: the fire of greed and grasping, the fire of hatred and aversion, and the fire of delusion and ignorance. It is the cessation of the compulsive, reactive, and deeply ingrained habit of chasing pleasure and running from pain. Nirvana is not a place you go to. It is the mind's own natural state, which is revealed when the obscuring smoke of these fires has been blown out. It is the deep, abiding peace that is already here, once we stop creating the conditions for suffering. It is the final and irreversible end of our inner turmoil, a state of unshakable wisdom and boundless compassion. To illustrate this relationship between the practice and the goal, the Buddha offered a powerful and enduring parable, the parable of the raft. He asked his followers to imagine a person who arrives at the bank of a vast and dangerous river. The near shore represents our current state of existence, a world of confusion, anxiety, and suffering, a state known as samsara. The far shore represents nirvana, the state of perfect freedom and the end of suffering. There is no bridge to cross this river, and no ferryman to take you. The traveler, being resourceful, gathers together reeds, twigs, branches, and vine stems, represent all the teachings and the practices of the path. The Dharma, he binds them together to construct a simple raft. Then, relying on the raft, paddling with his own effort, he safely makes his way across the turbulent waters to the far shore. He has reached his destination. He is free. The Buddha then posed the crucial question, what should this person do now with the raft? Should they, out of gratitude and attachment for the vessel that saved them, hoist it onto their shoulders and carry it with them as they continue their journey on dry land? The monks replied that of course they should not. The wise person would moor the raft at the shore, perhaps leaving it for other travelers to use, but they would continue their journey unencumbered. The practices we have: learned the mindfulness of breath, the cultivation of metta, the observation of our dreams. This is our raft. It is an absolutely essential and indispensable tool for crossing the dangerous river of our own confusion. But we must never mistake the raft for the shore. The practices are the means, not the end. Their purpose is to carry us to the direct, personal experience of liberation. And once there, we are free even from the need for the practices themselves. Our nightly journey into sleep, viewed through this lens, takes on an even deeper significance. The Tibetan Buddhist tradition, in particular, views our sleep practice as the single most important preparation for the greatest journey of all, the bardo of dying. The ancient teachings describe the process of death as a dissolution that closely mirrors the process of falling asleep. There is a letting go of the senses, a withdrawal of the elements, and ultimately an experience of the mind's fundamental nature, the clear light. Each night, as we practice, we are becoming intimately familiar with this territory. We are rehearsing, in a safe and gentle way, for our final graduation from this life. Every time we mindfully observe our thoughts dissolving as we fall asleep, we are training to meet the dissolution of death with clarity. Every time we practice letting go of control, we are preparing to surrender with grace. Every time we find peace in the darkness, we are overcoming the fear of the unknown. By making our sleep a conscious practice, we are transforming it into the ultimate training ground for a fearless and peaceful death. So, the grand vision of this path comes into focus. It is not a collection of life hacks for stress reduction. It is the most profound adventure a human being can undertake. The journey from suffering to freedom. The peaceful nights and the emotional resilience we gain are the essential provisions that sustain us on the trek. The various meditative practices are the well-built raft that allows us to navigate the treacherous waters. And the destination, the far shore, is the unshakable peace of a liberated heart. When a person has made this journey, when they stand on the far shore and have tasted that freedom for themselves, a new and beautiful impulse naturally arises. Their own suffering having ended, their heart, now boundless, turns back. They look across the river and see all the other beings still struggling in the current, caught in the eddies of fear and confusion, and they are filled with an immense, active, and unwavering compassion. This spontaneous desire to help all others make the crossing is the very heart of the Bodhisattva ideal, the final and most noble expression of a truly awakened mind. And so, we arrive at the final turn in our path, the culmination of this long and deep exploration. We have learned to forge a resilient mind through the dedicated practice of right effort and the profound stillness of right concentration. We have sharpened our focus, not into a weapon to fight the world, but into a lens, a clear and steady instrument through which we can see reality with unprecedented clarity. The question that naturally arises now is a simple one, yet it is the most important question of all. What do we do with this newfound clarity, with this resilient and quiet mind? What is the purpose of it all? Is the goal to remain forever in the serene stillness of meditation, a silent witness on the cushion, detached and distant from the chaotic dance of life? Is the pinnacle of this journey a quiet escape, a solitary retreat into a fortress of inner peace, while the world continues to burn with its fevers of greed and confusion? The wisdom of the path offers a surprising and profoundly beautiful answer. The journey does not end on the mountaintop. The final step is not one of withdrawal, but of return. The entire purpose of climbing the mountain is to see the landscape more clearly, and then to walk back down into the valley, to live among its people, to navigate its winding roads and rushing rivers, but this time with a new map, with a new way of seeing, and with a heart that has been transformed by the vastness of the view. Liberation, in this tradition, is not an escape from the world. It is a total, radical, and compassionate engagement with it. You do not cease to be in the world. You simply cease to be its prisoner. The ultimate expression of this return is found in one of the most inspiring ideals in all of spiritual thought, the ideal of the Bodhisattva. A Bodhisattva is one who is on the path to awakening, who has tasted the profound freedom of seeing through illusion, but who makes a vow, a deep and resonant promise from the core of their being. They vow to postpone their own final entry into the perfect peace of nirvana until every other being, every single sentient creature in all the realms of existence has also been liberated from suffering. This is not born from a sense of obligation or sacrifice in the way we might normally think. It is the natural, unavoidable consequence of truly understanding interconnection. Once you have seen, truly seen, that you are not separate from the river, the tree, the person who smiles at you, and the person who causes you pain, once you have felt in your bones that their suffering is not separate from your suffering, then the very idea of seeking a private, personal salvation becomes meaningless. It would be like your left hand seeking comfort, while your right hand was on fire. The Bodhisattva's path is the ultimate flowering of compassion. The question shifts from a personal one, how can I find peace, to a universal one, how can I be an instrument of peace for all? The purpose of one's life expands beyond the small confines of personal achievement and happiness, and merges with the great current of universal love and service. This journey, from the initial struggle with one's own mind to the final return to the world in service of others, is beautifully depicted in a timeless Zen allegory known as the 10 ox herding pictures. In these 10 simple drawings, the entire path is laid bare. The story begins with a man, the herdsman, who has lost his ox. The ox represents our true nature, our Buddha mind, our innate capacity for peace and wisdom. At first, the man is lost and bewildered in the wilderness, searching aimlessly. This is our initial state of confusion. Then, he discovers the tracks of the ox. This is the moment we first encounter the teachings, the first inkling that there is a way out of our suffering. Following the tracks, he eventually gets a glimpse of the ox itself. He sees his own true nature, perhaps in a fleeting moment of deep mindfulness or insight. The next stage is the struggle. He must catch the ox and tame it, using a rope and a whip. This represents the discipline of the path, the practice of meditation and ethics, the taming of our wild, untamed mind. It is difficult, arduous work. Gradually, the ox becomes more gentle, and the man can ride it home, playing a simple flute. His struggle ceases, replaced by a sense of ease and harmony with his own mind. But the journey is not over. In the next picture, the ox has disappeared. The man sits alone, peacefully. He has transcended the duality of self and mind, of tamer and tamed. He realizes that the ox was never separate from him to begin with. Then, even the man disappears. There is only an empty circle. This represents the realization of emptiness, of non-self, the deep understanding that there is no fixed, separate entity to be found. It is a state of profound peace and liberation. For many spiritual paths, this would be the end. But for Zen, this is only the 8th step. The 9th picture shows the world of nature in its simple suchness. The streams flow, the flowers bloom. This is the return to the phenomenal world, seeing it not as a source of suffering, but as a manifestation of the sacred. And then we come to the final 10th picture. It is the most important of all. It is titled, Entering the City with Bliss-Bestowing Hands. The enlightened sage, the man who tamed the ox, has returned. He is not in a cave or a monastery. He is in the marketplace, the heart of the city, the place of commerce and confusion, of noise and struggle. He is depicted as a simple, joyful, slightly pot-bellied man, often with a large sack filled with gifts. He is mingling with ordinary people, with butchers and fishmongers, with children and drunkards. And by his very presence, by the simple, unassuming joy that radiates from him, he awakens the people around him. He does not preach or lecture. His life has become the teaching. He has come full circle, from confusion through discipline and insight, to a profound emptiness, and finally, back into the heart of the world, not to take, but to give. This is the final purpose of the path. So how do we, in our modern lives, become this person with bliss-bestowing hands? How do we take this profound philosophy and apply it to our relationships, our jobs, our role in society? In our relationships, understanding these principles is transformative. When we let go of the illusion of a fixed, separate self, we also let go of the need to control or possess our partners, our friends, our children. We see them not as objects to fulfill our needs, but as fellow travelers on their own unique journeys. We can love them more freely, more completely, because our love is no longer conditional on them being what we want them to be. We practice right speech, communicating with kindness and honesty. We practice right mindfulness, truly listening, offering the gift of our full presence instead of our distracted attention. Our relationships cease to be battlegrounds of ego and become sanctuaries of mutual support and shared growth. In our work, the path offers a radical re-envisioning of what a career can be. In a world that often measures success by salary and status, the principle of right livelihood asks us to consider the ethical dimension of our work. Are we contributing to the well-being of the world or to its harm? But it goes deeper than that. Whatever our job, we can turn it into a practice. A stressful meeting becomes an opportunity to practice equanimity. A difficult colleague becomes a teacher in compassion. A repetitive task becomes a mindfulness meditation. Our work is no longer just a way to pay the bills. It is a primary arena for our spiritual development. It becomes a way we weave our own positive contribution into the vast, interconnected web of existence, a way we practice karma by planting seeds of integrity and care in every action we take. And as citizens of this planet, this understanding changes everything. When we truly feel our interconnection with all beings, we can no longer remain indifferent to suffering, whether it is the suffering of people in a distant land or the suffering of the environment upon which we all depend. We become more conscious consumers, more engaged citizens, more compassionate advocates for a just and sustainable world. We learn to engage with those who hold different views, not with the fire of anger, but with the clear light of wisdom, seeking to understand rather than to conquer. We have now traveled the entire circumference of this great wheel. We started in a state of unseen suffering, and we have arrived here at the gates of the marketplace with the potential for bliss-bestowing hands. The final and most liberating truth is this: the path is not a race to a finish line called enlightenment. This is not a journey with a destination. The path itself is the destination. Nirvana, that state of perfect peace, is not waiting for you at the end of the road. It is found in the quality of each step you take along the way. Every moment you choose to return to your breath is a moment of nirvana. Every time you replace an angry thought with a compassionate one is an expression of nirvana. Every small act of kindness, every word spoken with truth and care, is the taste of liberation. You do not have to wait to be free. The full circle is not something you complete in the future. It is available to you now, in the simple, profound, and sacred reality of this very moment. The journey is simply the continuous act of returning to it. We have traveled a long way together, on a path that began with a simple, unsettling image, that of a person running on a machine, pouring out their energy, yet remaining firmly in one place. It was a metaphor for a deep and pervasive feeling in our modern world, the feeling of being stuck, of striving without arriving, of being surrounded by everything, yet feeling an inner emptiness. Our journey was an answer to this quiet desperation. We began by doing the bravest thing a person can do. We dared to stop running, and instead, to look directly at our own unease. We gave it a name, dukkha, acknowledging the universal truth of dissatisfaction that touches every life. We looked for its cause, not in the world outside, but in the intricate workings of our own minds, in the relentless hunger of craving, the ghost that is never satisfied. And in that honest seeing, we found the most profound message of hope, the truth that this hunger can be quenched, that this suffering can have an end. We were given a map, the noble Eightfold Path, a practical guide, not for escaping life, but for navigating it with wisdom, with grace, and with a compassionate heart. We learned to sit on the bank of the river of our own thoughts, watching them flow by without being swept away. We learned that our breath could be a timeless anchor, holding us steady in the storms of the present moment. We discovered that within us lay the capacity not just to endure difficult emotions like anger and fear, but to transform them into the boundless warmth of loving kindness and the courageous strength of compassion. We peered into the very nature of reality and saw that the solid ground we thought we stood upon was in fact a shimmering dance of constant change, and that the separate self we worked so hard to protect was a beautiful illusion, a temporary gathering of stardust, deeply and inextricably connected to everything else in the universe. And so we arrive here, at the end of our telling, with one final, essential message. The purpose of this journey was not to convert you or to ask you to adopt a new set of beliefs. It was not to encourage you to become a Buddhist. The ultimate message is far simpler and far more revolutionary than that. The peace you have been seeking is not a thing you can acquire. It does not exist in a better job, a more loving partner, a faster car, or a distant spiritual achievement. These are all external conditions, and like the clouds, they will come and they will go. True peace, the kind that holds you steady in the midst of life's inevitable storms, is an inside job. It is a quality of being. It is a skill to be cultivated, a muscle to be strengthened, a garden to be tended within your own heart and mind. The timeless wisdom of the Buddha is simply a set of tools, a collection of time-tested instructions for that cultivation. You have the power to stop the treadmill. You can step off. The tools you need are not in some faraway land or ancient scripture. They are already in your possession. Your breath, right now, is your sanctuary. This present moment, right here, is your true home. The path to the peace you long for is not a journey to a distant destination. It is the simple, constant, and gentle act of returning to the anchor of your breath, returning to the quiet awareness that is always present behind the noise of your thoughts, returning to the boundless, compassionate heart that knows it is not separate from the world, but is a vital part of its unfolding story. The great search is over, because what you were looking for was never lost. It has been here all along, waiting patiently for you to simply come home.